Hey, cheese sippers. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's been a minute. Let me see if I can get this set back up right. Hey, tea sippers. Y'all know it's gonna kick out to do that crazy stuff. Hey, come on, come on, come on back in the house. We back. Tea sippers, what it do? Hey, so listen, I just came on back because I got out of jail today. You face YouTube jail today. I don't think I've ever been in jail with YouTube. If I had, it been a long time. Oh, y'all need to go over and make sure y'all catch that straight drop first. I don't want to say confession, but he told us a lot of stuff that we did not know. I want to touch bases on some of this Karmelo stuff as well as Trump. He in a heap of trouble, baby. That's all I know. So y'all come on in. I ain't been back. I just got out of the confinement. So I'm gonna jump in. I'm not gonna be back. I'm not gonna be on here long. I'm sorry. But let's just listen. Cause he lost that money. He had to pay that money up yesterday to eat Gene Care. Let's hear.
You can never do a deal with Donald Trump because it's never really a deal. It's always a way for him to use whatever leverage he has to. Reason 1 million, you can never do a deal with Donald Trump because it's never really a deal. It's always a way for him to use whatever leverage he has to extract more.
Hey, Cynthia. Let me get it back set up. You know, it plays these games. It plays the games. Let me see right here if this will work. Let's go. Come on.
And once you're under his control, he will use that to humiliate and bury and destroy you. By the way, in his Art of the Deal book, he actually described the deal as actually being not a way to engage in good faith, but as a way to actually try to basically lure people in with good faith and sucker punch. What we're seeing happen right now, remember the so-called deals that Donald Trump entered into with all of those big law firms early on, which bent the knee and basically agreed to like $100 million deal, a $200 million deal, a $75 million deal. And it was like, well, what are you doing? A deal for what? What are you settling with Donald Trump? And then like these big law firms were agreeing that they would do work for Donald Trump in response. Otherwise, Donald Trump would go after them, and that they would pledge all of these pro bono services. And remember, there was a group of law firms that bent the knee, a lot of them. And there were law firms that stood up to Trump. And the ones that stood up, inevitably, they won their cases because it was an unlawful, unconstitutional attempt to extort and blackmail them. And they would win their cases. But then there were firms that bent the knee. And so it is notable now to see some of these firms that bent the knee, they're now being subpoenaed by the Trump regime. And a lot of the leaders of this firm are like, we thought we had a truce. What are you, the DOJ is subpoenaing us? What are you subpoenaing us for? And they're like, we want your communications with Boris Epstein, Steve Bannon, and others in the Trump regime. And these law firms are like, no, you don't want to see those. Trust me. Those communications, not good for Donald and not good for you. Why? Also, not good for the leaders of these law firms, I'm sure, with whatever the hell they were telling Boris Epstein and Steve Bannon. Remember, Boris Epstein is Donald Trump's personal lawyer. If you read the book Regime Change, you see others in Trump's orbit warning about Boris Epstein, keep him out, keep him out. Not, just think about that. When people in the Trump regime are like, that's a bad guy, that says a lot, right? But Boris Epstein was involved in these, so-called law firm deals. And so just to kind of remind you, so the American Bar Association, the ABA in June, remember, Trump keeps on going after the American Bar Association, the liberal ABA. The ABA would be the furthest thing that I would call a liberal organization. It's not a political organization, the American Bar Association. But the Trump regime went after them with force for representing law firms who would stand up to Donald Trump, or just like standing up for law firms that would stand up to Donald Trump. They sued Donald Trump in federal court, and as part of their lawsuit, they sought discovery to get information from Boris Epstein and Steve Bannon, subpoenaing them about their communications that they had with some of the law firms that made a deal with Donald Trump. They didn't subpoena the law firms, notably. They subpoenaed Epstein and Bannon. So then Trump's DOJ sought to quash or block those subpoenas. They don't want those documents getting out there. But then the Trump regime did something very curious. They then subpoenaed the big law firms, not Epstein and Bannon. They subpoenaed the big law firms, and as part of the subpoena, demanded that the chair people, the chairman or chairwoman of these big firms, sit for a deposition in front of the DOJ where they'll get grilled by the DOJ. So now these big law firms that did a deal with Trump, they're not really even sure why the DOJ would want to do this, because they're like, why, this was not like an above ground thing. This was a kind of, this was like, why do you want to resurface all of this? So some have speculated, I don't know, maybe it's a way to put pressure on the firms, to try to pressure the American Bar Association to drop the lawsuit, because now look, the DOJ is going after me and the chair people of these firms don't want to testify. And then they're wondering, well, what do? We have this deal with Trump, or this truce, if you will, where we were giving pro bono services in order to not be investigated by Trump, or to not be attacked by Trump. We already made this horrible deal, and so do we try to quash it? Well, we don't know what to do here. Why are you even doing this? And so that's the state of play. So you have from the Paul Weiss firm, the guy Brad Karp, who used to lead that firm, he's been subpoenaed. You have Patrick Quinn of the firm formerly known as Codwalder, Jeremy London of Skadden Arps, Thomas Serabino of Wilkie Farr, Scott Edelman of Milbank, Adam Hockey of Allen Overy Sherman Sterling.
Reflections, did you see that live I did earlier on the other page where Straight Drop was talking? Yeah, y'all please hit the like button. We gotta talk about that one also.
Alden Millard of Simpson, Thatcher, and Bartlett. And these are the people that the Trump regime, these are the people who got a lot of crap, and rightfully so, for doing the deals with Trump. And now they're being subpoenaed to show up at a deposition. And trust me, these are people who don't want to sit for depositions. I want to bring in Harry Littman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel.
Hey,
Talking
Harry.
Feds Substack. And Harry, this is why you can't do a deal with this guy. You can't do it.
Yeah, the folks better stop trusting Trump.
If you think, even selfishly, it's in my self-interest, just do it, it'll go away. It never goes away. This is a guy who's going to be holding a press conference on Thursday night about the 2020 election. This is a guy who still goes Russia, Russia, Russia 2016. This is a guy, it doesn't go away. You have one, you have one option. That's it. You have to fight it. You have to stand up. That's it. What do you make of it all, Harry?
It's hard to feel sorry, Ben, for the Ben Carps of the world. These are guys who make maybe upwards of $10 million. There's never a crease off in their suits. They live the most high-flying lives as lawyers, but man, oh man, they've been laid low, and they're putzes. You're right. They had this initial choice, and they knew that there were downsides. For instance, their associates up in arms. Let's stay with Karp. The very best people from his firm have left and started their own firm out of outrage. Associates were up in arms, but they thought, we're in a hammerlock from the President of the United States and we are stuck. But it's just as you say, when you think that will get you out of the hammerlock, wrong, because here comes a kick to the nether parts, or it's just never ever gonna stop. Now, I think you're really right. It's as a straight up litigation technique. Why would Trump and the administration want this? You can bet your bottom dollar that Boris Epstein wasn't in there citing, Title 9 or the Title 7 or your DEI policies. He was in there talking tough, like a sort of Sopranos style litigator. And this is not going to be some actual, nobody even knew what they had agreed to. It was just, where do we sign? Pro bono services, sure. Stop our recruitment policies, sure. And they actually thought it would buy them peace. And the people who didn't, it's just as you say, they made the early call, the only call. Here's this path, and here is that path. And yes, this path is going to be rocky, but that path is just complete oblivion. We're gonna be in his thrall. Once you are in his thrall and he's got leverage on you, it's just how much lower can you bend, and you come to a point where you can't bend any lower. I do want to go back to these other guys though, because it makes it seem like no-brainer, and really the people from these firms, the Fed heads and Midas Mighty, you may not know, but the litany that Ben read off are like they're in the industry, you call them white shoe firms. We're talking about millions of dollars profit per lawyer, and all of the absolute highest flying law firms and litigation, and they are laid low. The people on the other side who decided we got to fight, they were, even to this day, there have been ways in which, if you talk to people, you probably know some, they say, look, I'm not sorry, we had to go this route. But still, they're nervous that there's a big deal. It's going to require government blessing. And because the Trump administration is corrupt and politicized, they will be treated bad when you go into the FTC or whatever. And for that reason, clients won't hire them. And there's every reason to think that the Trump administration has played unfair and tough in just that way. But still, you compare, that to what's happened to these people that are now in their thrall, and personal people, right? This is the Trump strategy. It's always the retail politics of humiliating an individual, or of granting an individual a kind of break from the overall regime. That's how Trump operates. So these guys, and I'm here again to tell you, they are law firm ninjas who walk through the halls of their multi-floor firms, and people, hold their breath. This is the chair of the firm, and that they're now being, it's as if their pants have been taken down and they've been whipped in the middle of third grade. They are completely abject and humiliated. And I agree with you from the straightforward position of the litigation itself. What is a sort of videotape, if you had it, of what Boris Epstein told these guys. How's it going to help the administration? I have no earthly idea, but I do know that it's going to really humiliate the people who've been subpoenaed if they have to actually sit down for it, and that is often the actual payout that Donald Trump is looking for. How can I just really grind up and make miserable people on the other side or who've maybe insulted me or the like? So that may be the kind of leverage, if you will, that they're looking for. And this comes down to, the old saw of politics. It's always the personal. This is, yes, it's Paul Weiss and
Oh,
Chairman
hey,
Sterling
Lakeisha.
and all that, but it's these guys who were in the chair, been humiliated in their own worlds. Their associates leaving, their partners saying, how did you turn us into quislings like this? But then in addition, they personally, it's like the reprisal prosecutions, right? They face the personal kind of whipping in the not just the, especially within the legal industry, that is an abject humiliation. And whatever bad comes out about the DOJ and Boris Epstein in it is from their personal vantage points. What's going to come out about them, I think, will look much worse, and they've got to be at this point terrified.
I mean, I think from look,
Wow.
in whatever this enterprise is, the Trump regime and the law firms at the highest level were co-conspirators in this, except only one side has absolute immunity. Donald Trump does, and everybody believes that Donald Trump is a grotesque, corrupt thing, and so it's not a shock, sadly, although it should be, that he would engage in this type of behavior. And so it is one co-conspirator now deposing their other co-conspirator, who, knowing where the bodies are buried, to bring them in, knowing that these law firms, since this happened, have done everything possible to try to lay low and just hope people forget about it and don't think about it anymore, and it just goes away and it just kind of fades, even though I don't think that will happen. That's what they've been hoping for. And so now the co-conspirator, the Trumps, are going to go to these chairs and say, well, we know what you did because we did it with you, so we're going to have you show up. Or you better use whatever influence you have.
Right. Pony up
Go
more.
tell the American Bar Association to shut this down immediately, or else we're going to blow up the. Don't think that you get out of this. We're blowing this whole thing up right now. And for Donald Trump personally, he sees this in the swing of all the other things that he's involved in as as a small issue in Trump's personal issue. For these
It's the
law
old Animal House line.
Well,
You screwed up.
we
You
have a
trusted us.
president,
yeah,
a
and for these chairs
convicted
of these law firms, they don't
apist,
like being
rapist,
deposed anywhere,
Oh,
yet alone in
convicted
something like this. It's the
rapist.
biggest existential thing in their lives right now, that this is happening to them. But again, this is why you can't make a deal. And you know what the right response though is, Harry? It's the one that they're not doing. Because the one that they did is they leaked to the New York Times the story to whine and complain about it. But the real way you respond to this is you go, okay, happy to show up. Let's make it public. Call your bluff. You want me to show up and tell them what we all did? I will confess and I will say everything. It will make Boris look bad. Let's do it. And then
and here's the cross motion for your deposition.
Yeah, here's the cross motion for yours. I will show up, happy to do it. Well, you ask me all the questions, I will answer it all. And then, what'll happen is Trump will probably say, I don't want to do that deposition. I don't want to do the deposition. So that's the dynamic there. Anyway, everybody subscribe to Harry
Okay,
Litman's
what we
YouTube
got
channel. It's
next?
called
Let's go. Y'all please hit the like button. I'm not, it's first day back in a while. Don't feel like, is it over there? What time is it? Don't feel like doing a lot of. So please just hit the like button. Try to catch up. Hold on. Well, I ain't gonna be able to catch up on this live, but you know what I mean. Let me get over here. Gotta get to Nolan. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, boy had escorts. Lindsey Graham, when he died, he had them escorts with him. Let me see what.
The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on amendment number 8, printed in Part A of House Report 119-749 by the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey, on which further proceedings were postponed, and on which the nays prevailed by.
Welcome back. We bring you all the most important and breaking news from Capitol Hill whenever it comes in. As we mentioned just before we went to break, the House failed to pass an amendment by Kentucky Republican Tom Massey to cut off.
I don't want to hear that.
Israel's contributions to America's defense are important. Our technology is
They was trying to stop this clown right here, and they
It's
failed.
incredible too. And you're the great champion of liberty and free markets.
They want to continue to fund him so that they can continue to
countries of talent
take over the U.S.
Would strengthen the America's position, competitive position, both in the economic
I knew he
marketplace
was
and in
A,
the military battlefield.
but I
in
didn't
many
know
important ways.
when he
It certainly
died,
brings up some
they
issues
say
of
he
sovereignty, but we'll have to
was
work
with
that out
an
later.
escort, but I think he got blown up.
Fox News' Rachel Campbell stuff, he said that at the end, but mainly for 99% of the segment, they let him pretend that Israel
Admits
and
that
America
schemes to
would
steal
both
the
gain
U.S.
from
and
our
the military.
militaries merging. So I'm very curious about your take on that in a second. But I want to show the audience a little bit more from what Netanyahu said and then get Marjorie Taylor Greene's reaction to it. So let's watch this.
Prime Minister, will that drawing down of foreign aid from the United States to Israel be compensated by the proposal to have a merging of some sort between our Pentagon and your military?
Yeah, I'm calling it from aid to partnership. So we take away the money that is given to Israel, which is one part, but the other part is we invest
Stealing our money
in equal measures in the new technologies that are needed to give our military and your military the advantage. So there are some unbelievable projects. So we invest jointly and take the fruits equally. You move from aid to partnership, and I think that represents what Israel is. And remember, the other thing is that we share with America unbelievable intelligence.
No, you
save
don't.
American life. General Keegan has said
More
that,
lies.
when he was working in American intelligence, what Israel was giving the United States was worth, he said, 5 CIAs.
Yet another insult to the Americans, although, as we talked to John Kiriakou the other day, he's not entirely sure that the current CIA doesn't work for Israel. In fact, let me show you that clip real quick.
When I first joined the CIA, we did not like the Israelis at all. They were spying on us. They made it clear. They openly spied on us.
Is the CIA working for America or for Israel?
You know, I hate to say this, but the only conclusion that I can draw is that it's working for Israel. And when you have this constant pressure from Capitol Hill, where practically everybody is taking money from AIPAC, and
whoever you vote for, that if they take money from AIPAC, choose somebody else.
Toe the line that AIPAC sets, then you lose that independence, and the next thing you know, you are working for the Israelis.
Yeah, our guest host today, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she wouldn't know anything about that. We'll come to her in 1 second because I want to show you one last clip that's so important. How many of you guys are guilty of doom scrolling late at night on social media, looking at the news, and then wondering why you can't fall asleep? Nothing pairs worse with trying to wind down than a bright screen lighting up your face and headlines playing on a loop in your head. Netanyahu actually clarified that in this same interview with Israel, as usual, and pretending that they don't want any more money. But Benjamin Netanyahu actually clarified that in this same interview. Watch this.
Do you have a timeline by which you would like to see that U.S. foreign aid down to zero?
Yes, it's military aid, actually. We were talking about beginning it this year and going for 10 years, but we might shorten it. And that was something, by the way, that I did when I was first elected and came to Congress. We had financial, not military support, but financial aid to Israel. And I said on my first
Israel
speech
really
before
is
the
the
joint
enemy.
session of Congress that
Oh,
we're going to bring it down
absolutely.
to zero, and we did that in 10 years. Every year went down until it finally disappeared. We could talk about that, but we're talking about that with the administration right now.
That's hilarious. He's like, we don't want any more money, except for the next 10 years. And at the end of that, we can ask for more money, and there's nothing stopping us. So, no, they definitely want 10 more years of funding, and they'd like to merge our militaries through Section
Yep.
219. Marjorie, what do you think of that?
Well, you have to fact check me on this, but I think it was Marco Rubio who introduced that bill that made it 10 years. If my recollection is correct, I think it was Marco Rubio that got that put into place in the first place when he was a senator. I think it's outrageous. Let me tell you, this is the most dangerous thing that our current Congress and leadership is doing to this country. It is literally, once it's done, it's permanent, and it will be completely invisible to the American people, at least right now, and I never voted for it. I was always against it. The $3.8 billion that goes to
A lot
Israel
of
every
them.
single year is something that you, the American people, can see and you can know about. But once this fusion happens between our military intelligence and the Israeli intelligence, and they're sharing all types of government contracts, building weapons, and they're sharing all of this together, this will be something that you cannot see. This will be something that will be completely invisible to you, and it will cost a great deal more amount of money than $3.8 billion. This is what you should be screaming from the rooftops over and calling in every single day. But let me tell you something. They are going to push this through, and that's the terrifying part. And here, I'll give you something. Democrats, if you put as much pressure as possible on your Democrat representatives and your Democrat senators, there's a chance that you could possibly get it to stop. But the Republicans are committed to getting it done, and that's what they're going to do, because this is what Trump wants. This is what the White House wants. Don't forget the chief of staff is a former lobbyist for Israel and many
Yep.
defense companies. This is exactly what Netanyahu wants, and this is the deal of a lifetime. So you talk about the art of the deal, it's getting done in this one. And just before I came on your show tonight, Cenk, I looked it up. I looked on the rules committee, and I did not see the NDAA scheduled this week on rules. That is something that could change. Oftentimes, just because you don't see it on Monday doesn't mean that it gets added to the schedule. Thomas Massey has an amendment to remove Section 219 from the NDAA. 219 is a section that passes this insane measure, absolutely insane. And it would be great if everyone can support it. However, I would be shocked. I would be shocked if his amendment makes it to the floor for a vote, because Speaker Johnson, one of the biggest Zionists in Washington,
Like, I don't
will
think
do
Melania
everything
want
he
to sleep
can
with
from
him.
stopping this and allowing this merger to take place. But when it comes to talking about Israeli intelligence, a lot of that is lies. That's lies that gets told to people like President Trump. It gets told to many members of Congress, so that they end up supporting something that they should never be supporting in the first place. That's what Israeli intelligence does. And I can tell you, most of the security briefings that I ever attended, classified briefings as a member of Congress, the stuff that they would tell us in there was so ridiculous. It was either straight up propaganda to get us to vote a certain way, or it was garbage that was already out in the New York Times and in the mainstream media. And they were telling it to us and trying to make members of Congress feel all special because they were getting a classified security briefing. So the games are absolutely shocking. And I can tell you for a fact that most of your representatives and senators are just not even intelligent enough or informed enough to see through the that they are fed every single day, especially when it comes to Israeli intelligence.
Well, there was one thing that Netanyahu was telling the truth about in that clip. He said, we give you unbelievable intelligence. That's true. It's not believable at all. Okay. And
Fair point, Jay.
yeah, I mean, and even the New York Times covered it in the beginning of this war, the Iran war. They came in and said, oh, Iran will never be able to close the Strait of Hormuz, and you'll be able to do regime change really quickly.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the invaluable intelligence they give us. And look, honestly, unless they're in on it, everyone in American media and in American politics, or almost everyone, is really the dimmest bulbs there is in the country. Any foreign government, of course, is going to give you intelligence for their own benefit. They're not going to be like, oh, you know what, this one doesn't help us at all. It's kind of counter to our
Yeah,
interests,
that's
but here's some
Marjorie.
intelligence. No, they give you intelligence for their own benefit. Like, you'd really have to be single digits in IQ not to know that. And so now when they merge our militaries, they get about a $1 to $1.5 trillion of free money from us in all the money we spend on technology, data, our military, etc. And to back up what Representative Green was saying, Marco Rubio did introduce the last 10-year memorandum of understanding. If you don't know, Larry Ellison, in an email that Dropsite News obtained, told the Israeli ambassador to the UN, I'll vet Marco Rubio for Israel. And then he did, and he came back and he said, I gave him $5 million into his super PAC, and he is going to basically work for Israel now. And so he did in Congress. He works for them in the administration. And by the way, his co-sponsor on that bill was Chris Coons, Joe Biden's top ally in the Senate. Joe Biden's top donor lifetime, also Israel. Has Israel given money to Chris Coons on the Democratic side? Of course. They've given to 94% of Congress. And that Massey amendment that the Representative Green just referred to is the Massey-Kana amendment. So who are they attacking right now in the press? Ro Khanna. Who did the Israeli lobby spend $16 million defeating? Tom Massey. So this is super obvious to anyone paying attention. But all of our press and all of our politicians go, no, I can't see it. I can't see the obvious
You are
corruption.
considered controlled
And so last
opposition
one here,
still working with
Marjorie.
for administration.
How devastating is it if we do this merger? How hard will it be to reverse it?
Well, it's catastrophic. It'll be basically irreversible. Look how hard it is for Americans to defeat an incumbent in a primary on both sides of the aisle. You can hardly ever defeat an incumbent. It's very, very difficult. Can you imagine how hard it would be to get people elected that would undo that? That would take decades. Absolutely take decades if it could ever happen. Once Congress sets something in motion, they never undo it, Jank, ever. You can look at every single government program. There's many bills that were passed that never have sunset clauses. They don't end anything. Once it sets in motion, it's the most dangerous thing that could happen for the United States because the American military, our United States military, all of a sudden becomes the tool for Israel. And that's exactly what they want. This is why Netanyahu calls President Trump constantly, why he's visited the United States so many times, why AIPAC and all of the Israeli lobby woos our elected officials and does everything they can do to bring them into that propaganda train because they want more than anything to control the United States military.
Yep.
Well, guess what? They're
Y'all
about
please
to get
hit
it.
the like button.
And it'll be something that's completely invisible to you all. No one will know what's happening. You don't know what happens and what is shared in these closed door meetings. You don't know what type of intelligence is shared between countries. This is something you rarely find out about. You can know about $3.8 billion that shouldn't be sent to them anyways. That's one thing you can see. But once this happens, you won't know anything. But you will see Israel use our military and abuse our military into, I would imagine, all types of horrors.
Unfortunately, that sounds exactly right. All right, Marjorie Taylor Greene, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks today. Really appreciate it. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
yeah, no problem. And look, I know some on both sides are opposed to us talking together and us working together on ending the war and ending our so-called alliance with Israel and all of our endless funding of Israel. But I love that the right and the left are getting together on behalf of America. I think it's actually one of the most positive developments I've had in our lifetimes. So
Yeah,
thank you for being a
I
part of
totally
this.
agree. Thank you, Jank.
Okay, what we on next? Hold on. Let me get to Let's go to Carmelo Anthony because
Carmelo Anthony update as you guys. We have a Carmelo Anthony update. As you guys recall, the last thing we talked about on this channel was Carmelo Anthony's new team of lawyers they filed a motion for a new trial. And in filing the motion for a new trial, one of the things they requested is that Judge Roach recuse himself. They don't want him on the case based on things that he has previously done in terms of his bias that he seemed to cannot shake. So let's get into it. Yeah. Of course, with Judge Roach, he did not allow any cameras or anything. So basically, guys, based on what we saw, or I always say what we saw, I mean, because generally we are able to go in these hearings, but of course, with Judge Roach, he did not allow any cameras or anything. So y'all got to go back and check on my previous videos as it relates to why they want this judge to be off of this case. You know, it just boils down to he just wasn't there. So Judge Roach has officially declined, and that is to recuse himself. He can say, you know what, I'm just going to step off the case. He didn't do that. He did not, recuse himself from the trial, the Carmelo Anthony murder case in Collin County, Texas. Instead of stepping aside, he officially referred the defense recusal motion to the regional administrative presiding judge, which is Sid Harley. Now, I do have a picture of this judge. So this is the judge that is he's pretty much going to make the decision. This is the regional administrative presiding judge. Of course, you guys know that Carmelo Anthony's new team, administrative presiding judge. Of course, you guys know that Carmelo Anthony's new team requested the recusal after Roach participated in post-trial television and news interviews. The defense argues that by publicly defending his courtroom decisions, endorsing the jury's guilty verdict, and discussing a restricted courtroom, Roach created an appearance of bias that compromises his impartiality in deciding the motion for a new trial. Right, y'all, my bad. So they're essentially saying, listen, we don't believe that you can be fair. We want you to leave. Okay? They don't think he can be fair. Now, the new judge that has been assigned to oversee this recusal, if he grants the motion to recuse, a different judge would take over the remaining post-trial proceedings. If denied, if it's denied, the motion is denied, then Roach will stay on this particular case, as the trial judge, which is a problem, but in all honesty, I believe because he has attorneys that's actually working for him, it will still be a better situation as it relates to this particular case. Now, if you guys are a little bit lost because you were not following up on videos, I'm going to show you the videos in which I kind of broke this down, because some of you may not know what I'm speaking of. All right, so let's see here. I am going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And this is just for those of you, if you have not followed my videos, you probably don't know what motion I'm talking about. But here's one of them. It says new trial motion shows Mike Howard failed his client. I think I broke these down in like 3 videos, okay? So that's video number 1. But I did this over a course of 3 because, you know, the document is pretty long. And then the next one is this one right here. Let me share my screen here. It says judge secret meetings without a reporter. Here's what Karmelo Anthony motion says. So again, if you guys have not watched those videos, which I, you know, went into the new motion for new trial, check those videos out. And then here's the final one, because like I said, it was a bunch of information and I was not trying to make this, you know, the videos 6 hours long. So here is another one. It says, Karmelo Anthony trial judge Roach does the unthinkable to hinder the appeal process. So maybe this is a good place to start. So with that, guys, you know, if he does not recuse himself away from this trial, y'all wait a minute. Give me a second here. Oh boy. All right. If he does not recuse himself as it relates to this case, it's simple. Just like I just said, he would remain the judge on this case. I think it would be both beneficial and advantageous for the court to move in this new, you know, in this new direction, because come on now, you know, we're not at this point, we're not talking about guilt or innocent. We're talking about what's fair and what's not. He did not get a fair trial. And in fact, Judge Roach needs to be going from, you know, in all honesty, I feel like he needs to be in prison. Like, this was criminal to send somebody to prison for 35 years on a case that you rigged up because you didn't want to hear the evidence, and then you're not allowing these people's background to come into play when this is a trial where somebody lost their lives, but he can't, you know, use whatever he thought or knew that these, you know, boys had in their background as a measure to say, listen, I needed to protect myself. So those are just my thoughts. So at this point, we're just pretty like waiting. So there's not really anything going on in the Karmelo Anthony case aside from those new motions that we kind of went over, I don't know, last week. So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Make sure you like the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Yeah. Okay, I'm listening. Go on. Yes, I'm typing it all down. Clear, spilling tea, no fear, no fear. They talk loud, but I'm still here. Like you should say it clear. I don't lives right here. Spilling tea, no fear. I'm still here. Da 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 da.
Hold on, it's over here. Hold on. Okay, so this is Nolan Wells, some of their press conference today.
Flavor, zero sugar.
Full smile and zero actual interest in her story.
Yes. Carly.
I just had the worst absolute massage of my life. I'm a tier 1 membership kind of.
I cannot do Carly today.
I can't
Hold
do
on.
Carly either. And I don't
Okay,
even...
let's go.
Under the law in Mississippi, a victim is entitled within, I think it's 72 hours to get an incident report and to have certain information shared. It's been more than 72 hours. Good morning. I'm attorney Ben Crump. along with Attorney Lisa Park, Attorney Eric Hurts,
So
Justin
this is the second press
Preston,
conference for Nolan.
and Cliff Jones. We have the honor of representing the family of Nolan Wells. We have present with us his mother and father, Christine and Elmore. We just had an opportunity to meet with District Attorney Angel McElgrath and some members of her team. We had a very respectful meeting. The thing I assume some of you may know, the thing to announce, she shared with the family that there will be a grand jury that she will turn this case over to once they have collected all the information and finished their investigation. We also agreed that we will have a mutual inspection of the cell phone with our experts and their experts. Attorney Eric Hurts is helping lead the investigation team with former law enforcement experts who are going to help us with the cell phone download. So everybody will be able to see at the same time what the cell phone has. We also talked about trying to make sure we dot every I and cross every T. I know that we're getting about 50 calls a day to 100 calls a day from people who were there on Horn Island, people who are familiar with individuals that were there on Horn Island. And so we continue to be steadfast in trying to get to the truth of why Nolan Wells is dead. At this time, we'll have Attorney Hurts say a few words, and then Christine and Elmore will just talk about the homegoing services and celebration for Nolan, and then we'll take a few of your questions. Attorney Eric Hurts. Thank you. Right now, there's a lot of unanswered questions. We appreciate the district attorney meeting with us, but because of certain types of confidentiality that even the victims are not allowed to know, we did not get all the answers we want. We have an independent investigation going on that involves former law enforcement, federal agents that are going to be looking into all the different information we got. The calls are coming in and we're getting a lot of information. Some of the people that I spoke to are not talking with law enforcement here. We're going to be trying to get them to cooperate with each other because we want to make sure the narrative, which has been put out that is false,
They said that baby body was tortured.
So at this point, we just ask everybody to keep calling in if you have any information and let us know. And I personally, if we validate you're a legitimate call, we'll call you and talk to you. And I thank you all for showing up today. And now, Christine and Elmore will just share with you some details of the homegoing celebration for their son.
Hello, everyone. So, the homegoing celebration, the funeral will be held at Central Point Church in Ocean Springs. It is going to be, visitation will be 9 to 11, and then the funeral will start after that. The plan is for the repast because, again, we want to celebrate Nolan. And he would not want us to be sitting around crying and eating. And so what we're going to do is kind of have a party to celebrate him, and that'll be held at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. So we really do want to keep it for family and friends. We are going to allow media to come in as well. And lastly,
His teammates.
Oh, absolutely, teammates. We've already contacted Coach Les George because we want to make sure that those guys are there. Former teammates from high school, middle school, teams that he played against. You guys are all welcome, but of course, we want to make sure that our families for sure and close friends get there. So I do want to just say for those of you, again, if you are having protests Even the day of his service, I am asking you guys to just keep it peaceful. Nolan would never want any type of violence or anything like that. He was not that kind of person. So if you guys would, again, just be peaceful. And to the community, thank you so much. Just the outpouring of love, support. We've had some local officials, Mayor Casey Vaughn from Gaucher has reached out to us. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. He has, it's almost been every day. He's been texting to check on us. Also, Jeffrey Hullum, thank you so much. He's been texting pretty much every day. Receiving a lot of stories from Nolan's teachers, which just warms my heart, his classmates, teammates. So again, for those of you who have donated to the GoFundMe, once again, I stress, if you are not financially able to, we're not begging for that money, okay? If you're not financially able to, we understand. We thank you for whatever you can give, but if you cannot, if you would, just keep us in your prayers. And to his friends, stay strong, and please just take care of your mental health, because I know this is a lot. It's a lot for us, and I know you guys are feeling some of that too. So thank you all.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Attorney Crump, Skyler Henry here with CBS News. The
Hey,
last
naturally,
time
Nolan.
that you spoke in a setting like this, I know you guys were hoping to get results back from an independent autopsy. I know you mentioned that Nolan has been sent to Washington, D.C. Is there anything to share on that front?
Not at this time, but we hope soon, very soon. Obviously, we're concentrating on the funeral services, but hopefully shortly thereafter, we will be able to tell some findings of the preliminary autopsy. Still waiting on some things. And also, while we're talking about funeral services, want to thank Mr. Tyler Perry for paying for the funeral, as well as Colin Kaepernick for helping to shoulder the expense of the independent autopsy. And I thank Reverend Al for agreeing to officiate the funeral services. Yes, sir.
Aaron Gilchrist with NBC News. Mr. and Mrs. Wansley, you said from the very beginning that for you, this was really about getting some answers about what happened to your son. Do you feel like after your meeting today, you have any more clarity on what happened?
Well, it was just a meeting where she talked about the process. She didn't tell us any information about the investigation too much, because those things are, as she said, her role and what she has to do. But they still have questions, and that's not insignificant to this meeting. It's just in general. Every morning they wake up and there's a hole in their heart, and they are trying to say, what happened to my son? Obviously, they feel strongly that he would not have just stayed behind. He wouldn't have left his cell phone. And so we're trying to get to those answers.
Attorney Crump, Brian Rose, GC Wire. There's been a lot of misinformation that's been spread online, especially the pool picture that was shared by you, and you had said that...
Well, I didn't share it, I reposted it. We're reposting everything. Let's make it clear. We're reposting everything because we're trying to get people to come in and call. And so we've said from the beginning, we're in a ferocious search for the truth. And so things out there, we are trying to post, ask people, do you know something about this? Let us know. Just because we repost does not mean that we authenticate anything. Look at our social media. We have always been very careful to say this is a repost, and we almost always give a declaration that that's what it is, a repost. And so we want people to continue to call about everything, videos, whatever interactions they saw, and thank God we are getting dozens of people calling every day saying, I was on Horn Island, this is what I saw, I know these individuals, this is what we know. They said, we understand the sheriff's investigation has hundreds of people calling too. And so the hope is that when this is presented to the grand jury, all relevant witnesses and evidence will be presented to them so that we can have a fair and impartial investigation into the death of Nolan Wells. We were very honest and candid with the district attorney, and she was honest and candid with us. Our lived experiences tell us that we must question everything, everybody's role, law enforcement role. That is the lived
Absolutely.
experience of us as black people in America. And we would be not honoring the ancestors' sacrifices for us if we did not be honest every chance we got when we talk to power. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the false narrative out there. Well, I've seen quite a few of those, so I was wondering if you could tell us which false narrative you're talking about so we can let people know it's not true. Was there a particular false narrative you were
There's a
referring
lot
to?
of narratives out there right now, and
There's a lot of narratives we're going to try to investigate all.
there's a lot of narratives out there right now. I'm not going to comment on any particular one, but whenever a case this big gets in the news, people try, for whatever motivations, law enforcement or whoever, people that call in, try to set up a narrative so that people will follow the narrative. Our job is to cut through all the noise and find the truth. And the truth needs to be found by unbiased investigation as well as unbiased lawyers and all the people that are out here, all you investigatory journalists and everyone else. We just ask that you keep an open mind until we get to the truth.
And one of the things I will say, we are trying desperately to figure it out. And we don't profess to have all the answers, but boy, we're trying. And so when people call and tell us this is this person, and then we get somebody saying that, no, this isn't that person, we're trying to balance it all. So we want to even be more careful ourselves to make certain that we're trying to get people to come forward. And there are a lot of people who have different perspectives. We're getting that just from the phone calls, that people who were there at the same time are saying different things. But we're going to get there. We're going to get to the truth.
So first, I
Yes.
just want to say my deepest condolences to you, Christine, and Elmore. My heart hurts. I bring you guilt, WLX here at home. But I want to go on and ask you, Attorney Van Crump, you say that you were talking about the process in there with the DA. Were any affidavits or possible prosecutions or criminal actions presented to her to be signed eventually, or do you know anything?
Yeah, and as she said, her role is confidential at this point, but so she can maintain her prosecutorial independence. Obviously, I stressed to her very strenuously to say, we want you to zealously, you and the Sheriff's Department, to zealously investigate this matter, and Christine and Elmore share their life experiences too. We know through our lived experiences, our life experiences, and she said that's not how our office operates, but we know in America, in the South, certain people are investigated differently. And we shared that with her. We didn't, ask that she understand our perspective, but we said we should mutually try to understand each other's perspectives, where we're coming from. And we agreed that we would try to do that.
Where are we at in the investigation of autopsy? We're supposed to get back Friday?
Well, no, like we said, we're waiting, let the doctors do what they do. They ain't got their autopsy back neither, so we're trying to get it right. And when we get it, we're going to share it. Yes, ma'am.
On Friday in the press conference, you said that you hear on the video Nolan saying,
Yes.
"My freaking phone, what are you freaking doing?"
That's what a witness told us, and that's what we reported out. Then another witness had come forward and said, no, that was his voice. We have other witnesses who said there were other altercations, so as Mr. Hurt said, We're trying to go through it all and so forth. And we'll be even more careful to say, this is what a witness told us in the future.
Whenever people that call in try to set up a narrative so that people will follow the narrative, our job is to cut through all the noise and find the truth. And the truth needs to be found by unbiased investigation as well as unbiased lawyers and all the people that are out here, all you investigatory journalists and everyone else. We just ask that you keep an open mind.
Oh, I'm sorry, don't fell over.
And one of the things I will say, we are trying desperately to figure it out. And we don't profess to have all the answers, but what we're trying. And so when people call and tell us this is this person, and then we get somebody saying that, no, this isn't that person, we're trying to balance it all. So we want to even be more careful ourselves to make certain that we're trying to get people to come forward. And there are a lot of people who have different perspectives. We're getting that just from the phone calls, that people who were there at the same time are saying different things. But we're going to get there. We're going to get to the truth. Yes.
My deepest condolences to you, Christine, and Elmore. My heart hurts. I'm bringing the bill, WLOX here at home. But I want to go on and ask you, Attorney Dan Crump, you say that you were talking about the process in there with the DA. Were any affidavits or possible prosecutions or criminal actions presented to her to be signed eventually, or do we know it?
Yeah, and as she said, her role is confidential at this point, but so she can maintain her prosecutorial independence. Obviously, I stressed to her very strenuously to say, we want you to zealously, you and the Sheriff's Department, to zealously investigate this matter, and Christine and Elmore share their life experiences too. We know through our lived experiences, our life experiences, that, as she said, that's not how our office operates, but we know in America, in the South, certain people are investigated differently. And we shared that with her. We didn't, ask that she understand our perspective, but we said we should mutually try to understand each other's perspectives, where we're coming from. And we agreed that we will try to do that.
Where are we at in the investigation, the autopsy? We're supposed to get back Friday.
Well, no, we like we said, we're waiting, let the doctors do what they do. They ain't got their autopsy back neither, so we're trying to get it right. And when we get it, we're going to share it. Yes, ma'am.
On Friday in the press conference, you said that you hear on the video Nolan saying,
yes,
my freaking phone, what are you freaking doing?
That's what a witness told us, and that's what we reported out. Then another witness had come forward and said, no, that was his voice. We have other witnesses who said there were other altercations, so as Mr. Hurt said, we're trying to go through it all and so forth. And we'll be even more careful to say, this is what a witness told us in the future.
And so your team hasn't been able to locate that to confirm whether it was or was not Nolan.
No, we have audio people doing it, but we know certain people said it was him, and then certain people said it was not him.
Are you worried about the death threats and the violent kind of atmosphere on social media, and how these fake videos and photos could play into that?
Oh my God, I saw a fake video.
Even with friends getting death threats.
We don't want anybody's life to be in harm's way just because we're trying to get to the truth of what happened to Christine and Elmore's son. We saw fake videos about AI-generated videos of Christine, and it's just god-awful as they're grieving and trying to fight for the truth, that they are also having to deal with these fake videos attacking them as they are just trying to literally bury their son next week. But we want everybody to say that we can go through this journey together for the truth. And even though we may have different viewpoints, we can all agree that everybody wants the truth. And nobody life should be threatened for seeking the truth. Nobody should be, presumed accountable until we have evidence. His mother and father only want, and Christine has said it multiple times, she only wants what you would want. If this was your son, if this was your daughter, wouldn't you want desperately to get to the truth? Wouldn't you want people who were closest in proximity to what happened to be investigated and thoroughly investigated? We know that, if it was Nolan, how would he be investigated? So, one last question.
Really quickly, just curious about the dynamic that you guys have had, Christine and Elmore, with law enforcement up until this point. Have you all been able to speak with the sheriff, any of the lead investigators, since what happened last week?
So that was actually clarified in today's meeting. The DA's office wanted to take over that communications because they do have a victim advocate, which I appreciate, but of course that wasn't what she, took responsibility and accountability for. But we were not communicated with that information. So for us, like I said before, the last time we actually spoke to someone with the Sheriff's Department was last Tuesday. That was via text message that I initiated, just asking for an update. So that's the biggest thing is, I appreciate that she took accountability for saying, hey, that was actually our doing. But, we have a setup now, and so the hope is that we'll have that open lines of communication.
So you feel like this was useful
And
today?
Attorney Hertz has a comment on that there.
Let me just say that under the law in Mississippi, a victim is entitled within, I think it's 72 hours to get an incident report and to have certain information shared. It's a bit more than 72 hours, and that's part of the meeting here today to start getting the incident report and all that information that we came here to collect, as well as listen to the district attorney and what she had to say.
Did you get that report?
No, not yet. We are working with them to say there need to be better communications with the clients and so forth. So the big things that we know, there's going to be a grand jury into the death of Nolan Wells, and number two, that we're going to have a mutual inspection of Nolan's cell phone. We just want to make sure everybody else's cell phone is also being downloaded. Thank you.
As far as
Everybody's phone's gonna be downloaded. Let's go.
July 4th, 2026, Horn Island, Mississippi. 18-year-old Nolan Wells, a star athlete and strong swimmer, vanishes during a boat trip with friends. By the time his body is found 2 days later on the island's northwest tip, the celebration has turned into a death investigation with lots of unanswered questions. Early on, reports indicated that Nolan stayed on the island without his friends voluntarily, but his family has raised some questions about whether or not that's actually true.
My sister and I actually went through Nolan's cell phone, and when we opened it up, there was nothing. There were no saved pictures. There were no
went in there and deleted
snaps from that day.
One fact that some say doesn't add up is Nolan's cell phone. Why would he stay on Horn Island and not keep his cell phone? Attorney Ben Crump has been hired by the family to head up their own investigation.
One of them is telling the truth. One of them is not. We have to get to the bottom of that.
At this point, the autopsy results aren't even in, so it's really difficult to figure out what actually happened to Nolan. Was Nolan drinking? Did he get stuck in a rip current? Or did something criminal happen on that fatal trip? Until the investigation is completed, it's hard to come to any conclusion. This is so sad. It was July 4th. It was a day to celebrate, and it ends up being the end of the life of Nolan Wells. And for all involved, it's a tragedy, but for the family, it is absolutely brutal. But the question is this a criminal cover-up? Is this an accident? And at the end of the day, when we get some results from this investigation, will the public trust it? I'm Vinny Politan. Let's investigate.
Y'all, before we keep going, can I get y'all to double tap the face of y'all screen and hit those three dots at the top right corner? Please. I'll wait for a few of y'all to go ahead and start hitting the like button. It's an hour and 10 minutes in, and I got 201 people going along with me. Can I get you to hit the like button, please? Let's go. Keep hitting it.
So the public is invested in this story. The public wants to know what finds out. But at the end of the day, this is a story about a family, and a family dealing with a very difficult tragedy.
Right.
The loss of a young man. Way too early. Shouldn't have happened. But it did. And now for this family, obviously they want some answers.
And the public
And
do too.
It's not crystal clear yet. It's far from crystal clear. What we do know is that Nolan was out that day. He was out with friends. He wasn't, surrounded by strangers. These were his friends. So that makes you first think, if something nefarious happened, why would his friends be involved in it? Well, you
they
think
weren't
about
his
the age
friends.
of everyone, and if you're drinking and doing other things, things happen. And sometimes something bad happens. Maybe it's on purpose, maybe it's not. But then there's a cover-up, and it makes it even worse for everyone.
Absolutely.
That's if these friends are involved with what happened to Nolan Wells here. And one reason a lot of people are concerned is the issue of the cell phone. Nolan Wells, the story, hey, voluntarily, I'll stay on the island. I'll stay on the island without my cell phone. Why would you do that? Unless something else happened and the cell phone was sort of an afterthought. I mean, that issue needs to be cleared up because it's a big deal. Plus all the communications on the cell phone as well. So that's really, to me, one of the keys to unlocking what happened here. Now, for investigators, they need to be transparent in this case. This is one of those cases that involves the trust or lack of trust of the system. So,
Yeah, I got that pin on my
investigators need to do
IG.
anything and everything they can to make sure the public trusts the results of their investigation, but even more importantly, that the family does. And I think they took one step towards that today by setting up a meeting with the family and their attorneys and representatives. The DA meeting with Nolan's family and with Ben Crump, their attorney. And the family came out and spoke afterwards with Ben Crump. Let's take a listen to what they had to say after meeting for the first time with the district attorney.
Lights up.
There will be a grand jury that she will turn this case over to once they have collected all the information and finished their investigation. We also agreed that we will have a mutual inspection of the cell phone with our experts and their experts, so everybody will be able to see at the same time what the cell phone has.
That's from WLOX, and that's important. Like, it's going to a grand jury. Now, there are investigatory grand juries that take a look at cases, and sometimes they will bring charges, other times they won't. But they are the ones who will take a look at the evidence. And a lot of times what happens in a case like this is you put it in front of a grand jury because it's a hot button case, right? And you're like, listen, we want to make sure that there's no appearance of anyone putting their thumbs on the scale one way or the other. So we put it in front of citizens. We put it in front of a grand jury and let them decide what the evidence tells them. And that's an important step. And you'll see that many times in cases like this that are very volatile and potentially problematic for investigators and for the families, and to get to the truth. So you put it in front of a grand jury. So that's good to hear. The cell phone, the mutual, this is unusual, right? That a cell phone will be looked at from the experts from the government, from the state, from prosecutors, as the family's own experts are looking at it. So that's extremely unusual, but a good step towards transparency. You want the family first to trust the results. If the family trusts the results, there's a much greater chance that the public will trust them as well. So I want to walk through a timeline right now, because I think to get the big picture of what happened over the course of those 2 days, ending with the tragic death of Nolan Wells. Friday, July 3rd, we begin. Nolan Wells left his family to spend the night with friends ahead of the holiday weekend. All right, so that's all right, I'm going with friends. Like I said, this is important. He's with friends. He's not with enemies. He's with people he knows, people he trusts, people that like him. Then on Saturday, July 4th, Nolan Wells joined friends for a boat trip to Horn Island. That afternoon, the group returned to the mainland, but without Nolan.
Klondike hits you with brutal cold. Can you survive? Build a warm camp and hold out until the first thaw. Clear the land for new settlers and grow your settlement. The town is growing, but supplies are running low. Time to scout. Look, ancient ruins filled with treasure right under your nose. The island holds far more secrets. Launch an expedition into the unknown.
Y'all, I need for y'all to hit the like button. I'm getting messages about 200 people in here ear hustling and not hitting the like button. Do I need to play some music for y'all? Do y'all need a music break or something? Y'all need a jazz break? The ocean and the wind?
Nolan missing that night after getting
I need for y'all to hit those 3 dots at the top right corner. Come on. Yeah, rest in peace, that baby. I hope he get the justice. I hope he get justice. What happened? Yeah, that little kid on the bus, yeah. Double tap the face on your phone if that's how you're listening, or hit those 3 dots at the top right corner. I said I was going to get off at 12. I'm trying to keep going, but I don't know, cuz. I don't know.
That afternoon,
hit the like button.
Returned to the mainland, but without Nolan. Without Nolan. Okay, that's unusual, right?
No friend leaves a friend behind.
-1. Family members reported Nolan missing that night after getting a call from one of their friends around 11 p.m. So to me, that timeline's important. Like, you return without your friend, okay, but why are you returning without your friend? And at what point do you get concerned that your friend's nowhere to be seen? And if you leave him on an island, how is he supposed to get back? What was the plan there? What was the plan? There has to be an overall plan. You don't just get off a boat on a small little island and say, okay, swim back. That's not the way it works. So, to me, those are some of the questions I have. And what is it at 11 p.m.? What happens that makes a friend say, okay, I need to call his parents because there's a problem here. There's a problem here. Why the worry all of a sudden at that moment, at that time? Now, on Sunday, July 5th, his parents makes a friend say, okay, I need to call his parents because there's a problem here. There's a problem here. Why the worry all of a sudden at that moment, at that time? Now, on Sunday, July 5th, his parents get possession of his cell phone after tracking it to a house on land. Whoa, put the brakes on that for a second. Why do they have to track down the cell phone? Why? Did someone didn't know that they had his cell phone? How did that work? How did they end up with the cell phone? Why did they have it? Why did they not know that they had it all along? Why did it have to be tracked down by the parents? Also on the 5th,
Jackson County Sheriff's Department announced they were coordinating with the United States Coast Guard and Mississippi's Department of Marine Resources to search the island. And this is where things ramped up, right? We've got a missing person. We need to find this young man. And then on Monday, July 6th, that's when he's recovered from the water near the shoreline. But what exactly happened? How did he end up there? What caused his death? When did he die? A lot of unanswered questions. And a lot of those unanswered questions were put forth in the first press conference by the family. Ben Crump was there, Mom was there, Christine, Dad, Elmore was there as well. Reverend Al Sharpton was also there. So let's take a listen to what they had to say at the first press conference in trying to figure out, like, okay, what happened to this young man?
That when I received the word of what happened to Nolan and began hearing what was pieced together, it is clear that this situation must have the most thorough and objective investigation to lead to justice. What we've been told does not make sense. And being that there is lack of confidence in the local authorities, who have already, in my judgment, seemed to have mishandled where it was going. Because to just immediately, before a week time, saying there was nothing done wrong, when we hear that this young man was engaged in some kind of argument that was on tape, that his cell phone and keys ended up with one of the people that were there on the island and got away. He was one black with 3 young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation.
And so I'm going to get to that in a moment, these glaring contradictions, but to try to say, oh, we're suggesting it was just an accidental drowning, go ahead and move on. Well, they are not accepting it. They are not accepting it. They want to know that you have not taken the path of least resistance, that you have done a full, complete, thorough, impartial investigation, because it cannot be lost on anybody, but especially us in the black community. If the roles were reversed and you had 3 young black men on a boat with a young white man, and that young white man ended up dead, what kind of investigation would be being conducted by the Mississippi law enforcement officials? How many times would those 3 young black men be interrogated? So all we're asking is the same consideration you would have given if the roles were reversed. Give that consideration to this family as well. That is our fight. The glaring contradictions just jump out at you. The fact that he is there with his friends, and you look at all the videos, it seems to be he's the only black on the island, or maybe one other, but not many. And so, Jared, you have where a young woman he was talking to says that, well, Nolan said he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys say that Nolan told them he was going to stay and talk to the young woman. It's a contradiction. Yeah. They're not saying the same thing.
we are grateful, especially to our friend Tashima, who actually was one of the people who helped us that night. She went and picked up his cell phone from where it was, and then provided that to us, because we of course contacted authorities to figure out who to do the report with, whether it was the county or the city, which then turned into DMR, who I contacted immediately from there. And but
How you got the cell phone?
so our friend actually, when I called her, Nolan is best friends with her two sons, Jalen and Javon. When I called her, I said, Tashima, have you seen Nolan? He's missing. No one has seen him. No one has talked to him. The boys were actually with her sons. So they opened up their Snapchat, because a lot of the kids do have their locations where they're tracking one another. So one of the boys says, well, it's showing that I can't exactly remember what his location was showing, but my Life 360 location was showing something completely different. It was actually showing that his phone was like he was on land. And so we ended up, she received the phone from that parent, and then we met up where his car was, which was at a separate location. There were issues obtaining the key, but even so, there was just a lot of...
Tell them about what happened with the key.
So I'm going to let my husband tell you about that, because he actually went up to the door to get the key, because at that point, I was just not in my right mind. This has just been an awful situation. Just terrible.
Elmore Wansley, the father.
Okay, so the situation with the key. When we got to the house, a few of his friends, they were already there. And they were at the door in the house, asking questions. So when I walked up, they were getting, things were getting kind of tense. So I turned to them and told them, I need you guys to calm down. I don't do this to me right now. I need them to kind of trust me so they can give me something. So I was able to calm them down. So the guy, he's in one of the pictures, but he came out of the room, half asleep or whatever, I think Jack's or whatever. And I said, look, I'm Nolan's father. I'm here to get his keys so I can get his car. I said, he's like...
His car was in the yard.
His car was parked in the yard. So he was like, I don't know, man. Nolan's like my brother. I said, well, if Nolan was like your brother, would you please go in your room and see if you can find my son's keys so I can take his car home? He walks off, 2 or 3 minutes, come back. I can't find the keys. I said, okay. So at that point, I get the boys and I move them out the house, because I didn't want them to go into the house and start tearing up these people's houses, because there'd never be a hold in the situation. So we walk outside by the car. One of the guys that was in the house with us, he was on the phone with a girl, and the girl told him that Nolan's keys were on top of this Jack's guy's Xbox in the house, because apparently she was there with him earlier. So he goes back up to the door by himself, and 5 minutes later, the keys come out. So now I feel like you done lied to me. So now I'm really in distress with you. But as far as their night goes, if I knew anyone who had a boat, I would have went out that night.
Tough spot. You can see they're broken up. It's amazing they can even speak, mom and dad. But a lot of unanswered questions, especially early on. That's why it's important that investigators and the DA keep them in the loop throughout the entire investigation, because that's what they're asking for. They don't know what happened here. Some things are not making sense to them. And they want it to make sense. And they deserve that. They deserve those answers to figure out. But the conflict there is huge. 2 people saying 2 different things about whether or not he was coming back or was staying on the island. Now, they also mentioned this video, and there was a video that was floating around on the internet. And everyone's wondering, is it Nolan on the video? And there's supposed to be an altercation that is heard. But ABC News got Trayston Shepard, who's a friend of Nolan Wells, who said That's the video I'm referring to, and that's me yelling in the video. It's not Nolan, it is me yelling in the video. So, is he telling the truth? You hope he is. You hope the friend of Nolan Wells is telling the truth. He's going to know if he's yelling. He's going to know if that's him in the video yelling. Because, you know, it's far away. You don't see the faces necessarily as clearly as you want to. But a lot of people were talking about that video, that there was some sort of a conflict on the island. He said, no, it wasn't a conflict. That was me. Well, you've got to verify that, in fact, it was him. Now, that same friend, Tracy Shepard, also told ABC News that, and this is again talking about the girl that he may or may not have met on Horn Island, said they met that day, and it's kind of one of those things. He did come off that day, and he really did like her. But that was the only time they ever hung out, was at Horn Island on July 4th. So this is someone new that he met. So is it plausible that he stayed on the island because he met a girl and wanted to stay with her? Yes, that's very plausible.
Not didn't leave his phone.
But according to the family and their investigation, that same young woman said no. He said he was leaving with his friends.
Oh, okay.
So what exactly happened? And why aren't these two stories making any sense? Obviously, it's a case we're going to continue to follow here on VPI. That's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Vinny Politan. Until next time,
Hey, Vinny.
Please don't forget.
Y'all hitting the like button, or are we ending? What we doing? We going on to the next one, or y'all gonna hit the like button? I need 50 people to hit the like button. I'm an hour and 32 minutes in. Are we moving on? Are we hitting the like button, or are we ending? Come on, y'all, hit the like button. Double tap. Only one person has hit the like button. Since I've asked what we doing, do I need to leave out and drop y'all down? Do I gotta put you out? Do Auntie P have to put you out? Because I know it ain't been that long ago that y'all know I will put you out. I mean, I know it ain't. Y'all, I have been, see, where I was locked up, they won't let me out. I was out copper shopping. I got me a few copper bracelets on my arms that I keep on to bring me that good energy, electricity, since we are electrical beings. Yeah. I went to the flea market and got 2 bracelets, and then I had ordered some. So I am, and I got a grounding mat. Y'all hit the like button, double tap, hit those 3 dots in the corner. What we doing? What we doing? What my friends say? What my attorney friends say before I move on? Oh, they did that. Dang it, I meant to chime into that. They talked about, they had a panel talking about the importance of the jury duty and broke it down. I'm gonna have to follow back up. Y'all hit the like button. I'm gonna try to move on. I want to hear what, do I want to listen to him? I'm waiting on y'all to get the likes up. Y'all ain't figured that out yet? Where did I see them talking about his body? Oh, baby girl just sent me this. But this is about Karmelo. I don't want to confuse y'all on it, but oh, the court reporter transcript in the case of Carmelo Anthony's case confirmed what we knew. Oh, wow. What did the transcript say? Only one person has hit the like button. And I can hop in the bathtub if y'all gonna play like that. Let me hear.
And I want y'all to take a look at this clip and tell me if I'm tripping. Because individuals that say that they are pro Carmelo, but you won't hear talking with this kind of rhetoric. I don't care how great of an advocate, of a lawyer you are, to post this after the motion for new trial, where it outlines every constitutional violation. Because not only did it piss me off, I'm just like, the audacity of people who claim to be pro Carmelo. Now, I want y'all to take a look at this video to see if I'm tripping or not, and come back after.
Find some sort of miracle. I believe Mr. Anthony is going to rot in prison forever because that's what's going to happen. I don't see any court overturning the conviction.
I mean, as the young people say, he's cooked. I think he's cooked. I thought that before he even announced the appeal.
To get clicks and views, clicks and fucking giggles, at the expense of a young man that was legally lynched is irresponsible. And to add insult to their own injury, they hopped in the comments, knucking if you fucking bucking. And I'm like, it's okay to admit when you're wrong, but posting that old fucking video that y'all talked about as soon as the verdict came out, knowing that the reality of this boy's case hinges on his attorneys violating every fucking constitutional right at the hands of the state and the judge, yeah, this was the reaction you was looking for. I saw this post earlier, and I want y'all to take a look at this clip.
Okay, what's the other one she's saying? What else by Boosie?
There's been a lot of misinformation that's been spread online, especially the pool picture that was shared by you, and you had said that...
Well, I didn't share it, I reposted it. We're reposting everything.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
From claims of Nolan Wells attending a pool party.
Oh, that's the same one. Wasn't it the same one? Hold on.
So, Reverend Sharpton, what was your reaction when you heard and when you learned that Nolan Wells had been found 6 days after he had been reported missing on that boat on the 4th of July?
Let me tell you something, what happens when people die. We want to believe that there's some other reason, that we can explain somebody's death, especially when we don't have a reason. We got to fill in the gaps with what? Speculation, misinformation, and if this, very able-bodied young man died, it had to be from some nefarious means, right? That's what we have to say. But we
On
don't have
on
that.
on
Where
the
is the
old,
foul
the
play,
new page.
Mr. Crump?
I
What
mean
happened? You don't
the
know.
old page
And
or
no
this
one's trying to
page.
sweep anything under the rug. If there's a
Naturally
homicide, you don't
known
think
as.
it's pursued just because he's black? I don't buy that for a minute. Now, does Mississippi have a problem? I spent 3 days going through Alabama, and there is just a shade difference between Alabama and Mississippi. And when I went through
Okay, let me
Alabama,
check.
you can fucking have Alabama. I was going through the Mobile River and the Tentom and the Tennessee, and I went through all the Tombigbee River, and I got shot at in Alabama because I was, putting up too much of a wake. Because I had a big boat and they
That's
have
the
a
one I
small
just
shore.
sent.
They didn't like me. So you can fucking have Alabama. If I've offended anybody in Alabama, tough shit. We should give it to Cuba.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
Shout out to Bruce Rivers.
He's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's
So, we did a reaction on.
Sorry. Did I hit the? Hold on.
The name of Nolan Wells off the coast of Mississippi, Horn Island, and this is an area I kind of navigated through when I brought my boat up from Fort Lauderdale. Not quite that area, but close. Anyway, before we get to, and there's a lot of speculation, a lot of grandstanding by some lawyers. Before we get to that, this is brought to you by AskALawyer.com. AskALawyer.com is a very effective way for you to get legal advice and AI advice. So, we did a reaction with Gentle Ben, and then he reacted to our reaction, saying, well, the reason we didn't get a lawyer is because we couldn't afford one. Guess what you could have done? You could have gone to Ask a Lawyer. Honestly, you could have gone to Ask a Lawyer. You'd have for $49, you'd have the advice of a lawyer all the time you want with a lawyer, and you'd have the AI component. So you could have done the things that I told you to do to begin with if you would have used AskALawyer.com. It's a very effective way for you to marry AI with a real lawyer. Everything you talk to the lawyer about is privileged. And so if you have a lawsuit or you're suing somebody or somebody's suing you or anything that you need legal help for and you can't afford a major law firm, which who can these days, go to AskALawyer.com. If it's good enough for Gentle Ben or my grandma, who's in her basement trying to plot against me, as you well know, but she keeps getting shot down by AskALawyer.com because they tell her, look, ma'am, you don't have a claim against your grandson for false imprisonment because he gives you lotion for your feet and for your OnlyFans page. So what's wrong? You're making bank. So then she says, well, what kind of corporate structure do I need? Well, they helped her with that, so now we're all good. So go to AskALawyer.com and say people that brought you eForm and eSign, quality folks. Okay. So before we get into our reaction today, I got a card, and I don't know if you can see that. This is a artist rendering of me and Michael, which is very sweet. And this is from Sarah Dean. I think she's from Colorado. Okay. And this is just, I'm going to say this. This is tall. Looks like he's a tall, good-looking drink of water, and
a tall drink of water.
Here he is looks like he's a tall, good-looking drink of water, and he is.
What are they on?
Tragic. 18-year-old Nolan Zay article here. On the 4th of July boat trip, an 18-year-old's death and a family search for answers. This is Sysak and Claudia Lauer. This is on the AP. Here he is looks like he's a tall, good-looking drink of water, and he is dead. Tragic. 18-year-old Nolan Xavier Wells took a boat trip with his friends to celebrate the 4th of July on an island off of Mississippi's coast. I think it's called Horn Island. These islands are notorious for partying and boating. I'm a boater. I have a 50-footer with 3 bedrooms and flybridge and grill and salon and swim deck. It's for families, right? We jump in the water all the time. We party on a river, and we have little islands on the river here between Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'm a member of a yacht club, And one of the things we stress in the yacht club, in fact, I'm the lawyer for the yacht club, one of the things we stress is safety and responsibility. I don't know how they got to this island. If the parents were anywhere near, even though they're 18, parents are still responsible for their kids, no matter how you slice it. They took a boat trip with their friends to celebrate the 4th of July off an island of Mississippi's Gulf Coast. And he never came back. 2 days later, he was found dead. What happened, Wells' parents say, is a mystery riddled with conflicting stories, implausible explanations, and missing details. It is a case shadowed by the state's fraught racial history and lingering distrust in law enforcement. So he's with white kids. He's a black kid. The black kid doesn't come back. The white kids don't know what happened. And we've got people fanning the racial flames. At a news conference Friday in New York City, Christine and Elmore Wansley called for a thorough and transparent investigation into their son's death. Skeptical of claims that Wells told his friends to leave the island without him and suggestions that he, an elite athlete who knew how to swim, had accidentally drowned. It can happen. Yeah, I mean, so here we got Crump. You know, I just love this. We got Crump and Al Sharpton, making this.
No, I thought he had some teeth.
Cause,
no,
right?
I don't have
and
time
we don't
to waste
know
on
what
that.
happened. That's the problem. And so when we don't know what happened,
Okay,
what
yeah. I'll check you back. I don't have time for that. Let me hear a former judge.
Hey, Blake.
I listened to him when I
Feeling bad
was
about your lawn? A little bit. Lawns are Gary's thing. Your
away.
thing is chilling with a Minute Maid Zero Sugar. Full flavor, zero sugar.
Full vibe, zero competition.
Now you're getting.
Y'all hit the like button. I'm getting messages that y'all not.
Fight Plus News. I'm John Albert.
Double tap. Did I go? Every single Republican voted today to merge the U.S. military with Israel. Republicans are America last. Oh my God. I'm waiting for y'all to get the likes up. Come on.
Following the latest surrounding the mysterious death of Nolan Wells, a black teen in Mississippi whose body would be...
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be reimbursed because we're protecting a...
A former Mississippi judge is now speaking out about the Nolan Wells case, and his message is raising even more questions about what happened in the days following the young man's disappearance.
A real person's experience as a judge in Mississippi, opinion about whether or not there should be an immediate arrest or arrest of those suspected of foul play in relation to the death of Nolan Wells off the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. Come on in and hear from the horse's mouth someone who had the authority to sign not only search warrants, but arrest warrants. Someone who presided over initial appearances, arraignments, and preliminary hearings for those accused of murder and other heinous crimes in Mississippi. I can talk now that I am a retired judge. Had I still been sitting as an active judge, I could not give you my opinion about an ongoing matter. But now I'm a retired judge, and I'm a practicing lawyer in Tennessee, and I reside in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm from the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I know the law, and I can give you my unfiltered opinion about what I believe should be occurring now or in the near future. Come on in. I have time tonight. I have time. And I'll be happy to give you my opinions, and then I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. It's time out for playing games. It's time to know the truth from someone well versed in it, that has actual experience. I've worn the robe, the black robe, and I've presided over these trials or preliminary hearings, arraignments, and initial appearances. Let's get started. So what do we know? We know, after watching the parents' interview and reviewing tons of footage from social media, recounting interviews and statements of alleged witnesses that were on Horn Island, we know that Nolan Wells went to spend the night on July the 3rd with his so-called friends. And he went with those so-called friends to Horn Island on a boat on July the 4th. We know that out of the 4 people on that boat, 1 did not return home. That 1 person was Nolan Wells. The other 3 returned home as normal and said nothing to any member of law enforcement or to the Coast Guard until at least 11 p.m. at night on July the 4th.
After reviewing the publicly available information and listening to statements from Nolan's parents, the retired judge says there are several investigative steps that he believes should have already been taken.
We know that at least 1 of the so-called friends was found with the phone of Nolan Wells. And we know this based on the testimony of the parents, specifically the mother, who tracked the phone and was led to the home of one of the young men where she retrieved the phone. We also know that based on the mother's testimony that there were no Snapchats from the day, which was very odd for her son. We also know that text messages were deleted. We know that when she was tracking the phone, Life 360 said the phone was one place and Snapchat said it was another place. We know that the boy that had the phone did not voluntarily turn it over or call first. He had to be found through their own investigation. We know that based on witnesses' account, the so-called friends were seen on July the 5th, that Sunday, having breakfast together like nothing had happened. They were not out there searching for their so-called friend. We know that the so-called friends deleted their social media, deactivated their accounts, and scrubbed it clean if the allegations are correct. We know that the young man that had the car at his house did not willingly turn over the keys. At first he said that he did not have the keys, he didn't know where they were, then he, after being pressed by the father, he finally turned over the keys. This is all very suspicious activity. We know that based on an audio recording and some video that Nolan Wells can be heard saying, give me my freaking keys. Excuse me, give me my freaking phone. And it's been two different versions. Some said he said, give me my freaking phone, or some say he said, give me my ML phone. Regardless, he was asking or demanding his phone. Someone had his phone who did not have permission to have his phone. So the first thing I see, the simplest thing I see is who had his phone and why, and was that theft of the phone? Sometimes we look at the largest case, we try to get to murder, but the person that took his phone committed a crime right there. There are witnesses to who took that phone. If an affidavit is signed, an arrest warrant could be signed by a judge in Mississippi to go after that person that had that phone unlawfully. We know, based on his own words, Nolan Wells' words while he was alive, he did not give whoever had that phone permission to have that phone. So was that theft? I think if an affidavit is signed, if it was presented to me when I was a judge, I would have signed an arrest warrant for the person for theft of that phone, based on what I've heard. It'd have to be an affidavit format, but if it was presented to me in affidavit format from law enforcement, I would sign the arrest warrant for, at least at this point, theft of the man's phone. We know who had it. We know who didn't report it to the family. The family had to go find it, and we know that Nolan Wells said give it back to him, and evidently it was not given back to him. Why was that?
According to him, this isn't about rushing to conclusions. It's about making sure every lead is properly investigated and every piece of potential evidence is preserved before it's too late.
All of the other things I've stated, you piece it together. Is there enough right now for arrest warrants for murder? That is a good question. I do know at this point there should have been search warrants signed by a judge. Evidence should have been presented to a judge by now. We are nearly 7 days after July the 4th, when he was first reported missing. There should have been evidence submitted by Jackson County law enforcement agents, the Sheriff's Department specifically, presented to a judge so that search warrants could be signed by the judge, and there needs to be, or should have been, someone questioning the young men, the three so-called friends, and others, and the social media accounts need to be searched by now, or at least a search warrant should have been issued for the appropriate entities to give the law enforcement access to the social media information. That should have been done by now. I'm not telling you what I imagine. I'm telling you what the process usually is when you're trying to do a thorough investigation. And based on what's revealed from a thorough investigation, I do believe once the evidence is secured, it's going to lead, and it should lead, to the arrest of one or more individuals for the murder of Nolan Wells. All of the actions are very suspicious, and right now they lead one to believe that one or more persons could have been involved with the death of Nolan Wells. Right now, we have a lot of unsworn testimony, but once that is put into affidavit format and there is corroborating evidence through social media, computers, or otherwise, I believe that at that point there will be enough evidence for a judge to sign an arrest warrant. I think critical evidence is missing right now are the results of the autopsy, the state's autopsy and the independent autopsy. That's going to be critical information. And that alone, or that in connection with what's already known, may be enough to lead to an arrest or arrest. We do know at this point, low-hanging fruit, there should be an investigation about the underage drinking, who provided the alcohol. Those individuals could be immediately arrested based on if there was any sworn testimony presented to a judge. I believe a judge could immediately sign an arrest warrant for those who provided the alcohol to underage individuals. There's a lot of people and a lot of potential crimes, some misdemeanors and felonies, that people could be held accountable for. Was there any boating while intoxicated? Who was the captain of the boat? And what did he allow on his boat? If there were any illegal drugs possessed by anyone, drugs are still illegal in Mississippi, at least they were when I was on the bench. Drug possession, drug use, selling of drugs, dealing drugs, trafficking drugs. You've heard testimony, or allegations at least. I don't think anything's been put in affidavit format yet, about rampant drug use among certain individuals. So there are a lot of things that's been alleged. Once put into the correct format, affidavit-wise, it could lead to arrest for several things, including misdemeanors and maybe even felonies.
His comments come as Nolan's family continues to push for answers, saying they still don't have a clear explanation for what happened after Nolan disappeared during a boat trip with friends.
There's a lot left to do. We are not rushing to judgment, but I just thought I would come on here and tell you that there definitely should be search warrants issued by now, and there could be arrest warrants for certain crimes issued by now. But for the ultimate crime of murder, it is probably wise to wait to see what the autopsy reveals, or both autopsies reveal, and then parse that together with all the video footage, all the witness statements taken, any affidavits gathered, and then make a decision, get it all to a judge at that point, for a judge to decide whether or not to sign a warrant for the arrest of one or more individuals. It would be very interesting to see what the autopsy shows. There's also the potential for kidnapping. It needs to be looked at whether or not they can get to murder. Was there kidnapping? Was this young man taken somewhere against his will at any point? Was there abuse of a corpse even after he died? So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at from various law enforcement perspectives. Law enforcement has to do their job and get the information to a judge in the right format before a judge can act. Had I still been on the bench, if I wanted to act, I could not act unilaterally. I would have to wait till law enforcement brought me the evidence in the right format before I could sign an arrest warrant, before I could sign a search warrant. And so that's how the process works. That's how the process works. And so I am happy to be a retired judge. I'm always going to shoot it to you straight with no chaser. Straight with no chaser. I will tell you the God honest truth. I can tell you this one thing. I may have been born at night, but I was not born last night. And one thing about it, you cannot fool the informed. I've been on the inside. I know the process. And we will not sit quietly and allow this to be swept under the rug. I will call your hand. I will call your hand. You are not going to play these people for a fool. You are not going to play these people for a fool. We know the process. We know what you should be doing. And by God, I plan to make sure you do it. Or we're going to call you out each and every time. There is a process. What I do know is, had the roles been reversed,
Yeah, we all know that.
by now, there would likely have been already arrests made. It wouldn't have taken all 6 days, 7 days, whatever amount of days it's going to take. Had the roles been reversed, justice, the wheels of justice spin quickly. Somebody would have been arrested for something by now. But since the roles are what they are, we are expected to be patient, and they're gonna
play games.
Every T, and they're gonna dot every I in the investigation before they make a move, because of the people that are potentially involved. That's the way the criminal justice system works, unfortunately. If you have access to power or money, in some instances, if you're the right color or the right hue, you will get the benefit of the doubt.
So there is no.
And regardless of all of that, based on what I've heard, not in the affidavits I've seen, if the affidavits come to support what I've heard, I do believe, especially with the autopsy, once that is in.
Every detail matters. Every clue can change everything. Two things happened this week that quietly rewrote this entire case, and neither one has gotten the attention it deserves yet. The FBI is now in contact with local investigators. And the girl at the center of the single biggest contradiction in this whole story, the one everyone's been arguing about for 2 weeks, finally has a name attached to her coming from her own family, not from a leak or a guess.
Y'all hit the like button, or this is gonna be my last.
26, more than a week since 18-year-old Nolan Xavier Wells was found dead in the water off Horn Island, Mississippi, and this case is still nowhere close to over. No matter how many people online have already decided they know exactly what happened. If you're just finding this channel now, or if you watched the first video on this case and want the version of it.
Hold on.
We just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come
Yeah,
home.
I don't want.
That is the cry of a mother who
Yeah.
asks for the answer about what happened to her son.
Hold on.
And I don't think this is
Let
too
me
much
end
from a
on
loving
Trump,
mother to know. What really happened to Nolan Wells? We still haven't got an answer for that. How can this be seen?
Todd Blanche just wrapped up his confirmation hearing for the Attorney General position. It was an absolute disaster. Let me show you what went down as he stormed out.
Yeah, hit
of
the like
hearing.
button.
You can see him walk away. Midas touch. Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief Scott McFarland had a question for him as he stormed out. Here, play this clip.
Mr. Attorney General, going to be with the Epstein survivors while you're here, sir? Mr. Blanche,
Any interest in meeting with the Epstein survivors down the hall? Let me show you what went down inside of the hearing. Democratic Senator Schiff was cross-examining Blanche. Let's play this.
Well, it's in the plain language of your agreement. Did you write this language?
You have to use the facts, though.
Did you?
He hasn't filed taxes yet. So when he files taxes, there's no protection based on this agreement.
Did you write this language?
Did I type it up myself?
Did you write this language?
No.
Well, you put your name to it.
I did.
So who wrote this?
I don't know the person that actually typed it. I don't know who it is.
Was it one of the president's lawyers, or was it someone from the Justice Department or IRS?
This document would have been somebody within the Department of Justice.
So you have no idea who that is?
I don't know the name of the person that typed it up.
Did you debate with them the statute of limitations, which clearly would preclude the president's claim, this $10 billion lawsuit?
We had extensive discussions internally about the underlying litigation.
And did you reject the statute of limitations defense?
I'm not a judge. I don't reject.
But you signed an agreement for the U.S.
There was discussion around
you signed an agreement for the U.S. basically indicating that the Justice Department's position that the statute of limitations applies doesn't matter.
I did. That's not what I.
More cross-examination here from Senator Schiff cross-examining Todd Blanche. Let's play this.
It's that. Let me ask you this. Does this tax agreement, this addendum you signed, also hold him harmless from any audit or tax liability with respect to the billions in crypto money he made in his first year as president?
It's not forward-looking. So to the extent there are taxes filed by the president or his sons or the Trump organization after the date of that agreement, there's no protection.
Well, but before that agreement, so any taxes,
he hasn't filed taxes yet for money he made last year, right? So
yes.
No.
So if he filed tax returns this year for money he earned last year, that his sons earned, that his World Liberty Financial, all those people earned and defrauded taxpayers on it, he faces no liability under this agreement we signed.
There's no evidence taxpayers were defrauded, and he is
but
not
there's evidence in this agreement that you've absolved him of any liability over.
No, I just said he's not absolved. So the question
So this agreement doesn't apply to a tax return filed last year or filed this year?
To tax returns filed after the date of the agreement? No.
No, before the agreement. A tax return filed in this calendar year before this agreement.
Before the agreement, it applies, not after.
Okay, so for a tax return filed this year for last year, for the billions he made, there's no tax liability, even if he cheats on his taxes or his kids do or his business do. He is absolved of that further potential liability.
No.
Well, it's in the plain language of your agreement. Did you write this language?
You have to use the facts, though.
Did you?
He hasn't filed taxes yet. So when he files taxes, there's no protection based upon this agreement.
Then we heard from Democratic Senator Whitehouse. Let's take a listen to this cross-examination.
Senator Whitehouse. Morning, Mr. Blanche.
Good morning.
Why won't you tell us what became of the $50,000 in confidential money that the FBI reported that it gave to Tom Homan?
I'm not aware of what you're speaking about. To the extent that there have been public reporting about an investigation, I know nothing about it.
Well, the public reporting is that the FBI reported giving $50,000 in the nature of a bribe to Tom Homan, and there's been no report of what became of that $50,000. Will you answer that question? Not now, but will you answer that question? Because we've been asking for a long time now. Your department certainly knows what's happening.
I'm not aware that that's true.
Well, take a look at it, and it's publicly reported, and the FBI reported it, and you should answer the question.
Then we heard from Democratic Senator Coons. Let's take a listen.
Answer a question by a colleague about input that you gave to the president. Did you ever say no to the president on the slush fund, the anti-weaponization fund? Did you advise him against this?
I will not talk about communications I have with the president. I served as his lawyer for a couple years before he was elected. the Deputy Attorney General and the Acting Attorney General. So I'm not going to talk about communications that I have with him. But Senator, I will say that President Trump trusts me to give him counsel. Counsel does not mean yes, man. And so that's true in my case, like it should be in any Attorney General's case.
So let me just for a minute bear down on the anti-weaponization fund.
This was an interesting part where MAGA Republican Senator Kennedy asked a question that was supposed to be a softball for Todd Blanche. Are you and President Trump friends? To which Todd Blanche responded, I am his lawyer. I mean, was his lawyer. Yeah, you've turned the DOJ into a racketeering enterprise engaged in crimes and basically serving as not just Donald Trump's criminal defense attorney, but as Donald Trump's criminal partner. Here, play this clip.
Are you and President Trump friends?
I'm his lawyer, was his lawyer, and now I'm the Deputy Attorney General. So I met him as his criminal defense attorney. I'm not sure there's very many people who have ever had a criminal defense attorney who calls that person their friend. I now have a...
Well, let me put it this way. Are you enemies?
No, we're not enemies at all. No.
Have you...
More from Democratic Senator Whitehouse right here. Let's play it.
It depends on...
Explain how it is active continued litigation in the District of Florida.
Well, there's been several indications that the parties I never entered notice of appearance, but that the parties intend to appeal the judge's Monday 56-page decision.
Well, it'll be interesting. Do you intend to appeal the Department of Justice?
We weren't really even part of that decision. So to the extent there's something that we can appeal, I very vigorously will encourage the department to do so.
Well, here's the tell. In that case, the Department of Justice filed no answer, filed no agreement with respect to the extension of time, filed no response to the case or controversy amici, filed nothing related to the withdrawal of the complaint, filed no settlement, and filed no response to the fraud on the court inquiry. To me, as a one-time litigator, that looks like really weird behavior. And when for the first time in history there's an inquiry into fraud upon the court committed by the Department of Justice, the silence from the department in response to that is deafening, Mr. Blanche, deafening. And it strikes me that the stratagem here was to file no pleadings, to try to keep the department out of the authority of the court, when what the department knew to be a collusive and false enterprise was blown up in that court. Now, it didn't work because the court found collusion, and it takes two to collude. And they also went on and made the other adverse findings about the department's conduct. And the problem here, Mr. Blanche, is that it's not just that one occasion. Between judges appointed by every president harshly criticizing the department's work in your tenure, grand juries rejecting indictments, judicial findings of outright misconduct, capable lawyers fleeing the stinking ship, this seems to be the most troubled Department of Justice in history. Here are some of the misconduct findings against your U.S. attorneys. And so I haven't put it up yet. Here's a word cloud of the commentary by federal judges about the conduct of your DOJ. These are red flag words that when I was a U.S. attorney would have provoked at minimum an internal conversation about what the hell went wrong, and very likely a conversation with OPR and maybe OPR pursuit. Or it's like pretext.
Then we heard more cross-examination. This time it was from Republican Senator Cornyn. Here was his cross-examination of Todd Blanche regarding the weaponization fund, you know, the deal that Donald Trump entered into with the government after suing the government for $10 billion this year. And I thought it was a good line of questioning by Cornyn that he says, you know, the settlement agreement says it can only be modified if there is a writing. Isn't that why you don't want to put anything in writing? Because the agreement only gets modified if it's in writing. That's why you don't want to put it down in writing before any courts or anything like that. That's your trick in order to keep Donald Trump super pardoned so Trump never gets audited for all of his tax evasion and any tax fraud and any tax crimes that he may have committed. And that this is how you keep the weaponization fund alive, by not putting it in writing. Here, play this clip.
Lock in with a buy one, get one, create your own pizza from Papa John's. Order in so you can lock in. Buy one, get one pizza for a limited time on Uber Eats.
Fast is just the beginning. Loved for its great Wi-Fi, award-winning app, and calls answered in seconds. Now with Wi-Fi 7, free custom install, and battery backup. G-Fiber. Finally, internet you may actually love.
But let's talk a little bit about the settlement agreement and the release. First of all, I believe you have said that the weaponization fund is a moot issue. Is that your position?
Yes, it is a moot issue, meaning there is no weaponization fund. The weaponization fund is dead. It's not moving forward.
Well, I would refer you to the settlement agreement. Do you happen to have a copy of that in front of you?
I do not.
Okay,
Senator.
well, you probably know what's in it.
I'm familiar with it, yes.
I'm sure you are. On page 4, this settlement agreement may be modified only upon the written agreement of the parties. Has there been a written agreement of the parties to modify the settlement fund?
No, the settlement fund's just not moving forward. There's no modification. It's just, it never started. No money went from the Treasury to any other account. There's no commissioners. It's not moving forward.
Well, so the settlement agreement remains as it was originally, but I hear what you're saying. Is the settlement agreement enforceable as a contract by the parties?
Well, yes, it's an enforceable document. So I suppose if President Trump's counsel sought to enforce it, they potentially could.
Including the weaponization fund?
Well, they could try to enforce the contract. They can't force the Department of Justice to move forward with the weaponization fund. They could potentially say that, I suppose, that we breached by not moving forward. They haven't done that, and I'm not aware that they're planning on doing that. Like I said, Senator, and Senator Durbin talked about this, but I've talked extensively with you and other colleagues about potentially codifying so there's no weaponization fund, which is certainly something that could be done. And I wasn't meaning to insult this body, but just that in response to questions from senators about whether that could be done, we very much are okay with that.
But just to be clear, the President of the United States, who is the plaintiff in this lawsuit, has not agreed in writing to delete the weaponization fund, and there's no guarantee that he or one of the other plaintiffs might raise that issue by way of a lawsuit and a breach of contract lawsuit in the future.
Well, Senator, the plaintiffs have no power over the fund. The fund was administered solely by the by the 5 commissioners and through the Department of Justice. So no, they don't have any power with respect to the fund at all. I suppose they could bring a lawsuit and then we would litigate it. But even if we were litigating it, there's no fund. So the results of such litigation, whatever it would be, wouldn't be a revival of the fund.
I want to ask you about the release.
And then Cornyn says, it also talks about you releasing something called lawfare or weaponization in your settlement agreement with Donald Trump. Tell us, what does that mean? So we all know what it is that the United States is releasing Donald Trump from as part of this super pardon that you've given him while being his lawyer. Here, play this clip.
Finally, let me just go back to the, in the 50 seconds I have, go back to this release. This purports to release lawfare or weaponization and/or weaponization. Those aren't legal terms of art, are they?
I think they are just legal terms of art. They're not, there's not any.
Have they been defined in any case or any statute?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So they're not a legal term of art.
Well, I think that the terms have been used by the legal community and by people within government, but no, I'm not sure that they're in Black's Law Dictionary.
But we don't know what that covers.
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances of the facts presented as to whether it covers. As to what it covers, sorry.
Thank you. My time's up. Klobuchar.
Let me interrupt for a moment with a news story that you need to hear. So just recently, the Trump administration bragged about the PJM power grid. It's the largest in the country, moving away from renewables. Energy Secretary Chris Wright posted a chart showing coal, gas, and other non-renewable sources making up over 91% of generation and renewables under 6%. He was bragging about this. His advice in a time of strain during the summer heat was to keep your air conditioners blasting. His words. One day later, PJM had to declare emergency actions following an alert by the federal government, the Trump administration, telling utilities to cut electricity use as outages, overloaded transmission lines, and extreme heat pushed the system towards blackouts. Now, Trump loves to say in his speeches, like all the time, that only unsuccessful countries use wind, that only disasters run on renewables. He said that China doesn't use wind power, but that's not true even in the slightest bit. China is the #1 wind producer on Earth. It's not even close, and they keep on expanding it. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is bragging about cutting renewables while the grid nearly buckles. Listen, this isn't about politics, it's facts and common sense. Renewables aren't just good for the environment, they're good for lower costs and a stronger, more reliable grid, and they make the country stronger and more competitive as a whole. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think about how the administration is handling climate and renewable energy? Do you want to see more investment? Let us know all your thoughts right now in the comments. I want to hear from you. Okay, Ben, back to you.
Then we heard from MAGA Republican Senator Kennedy, and he asked Todd Blanche, other than to himself, was there anybody who Epstein trafficked young women to? To which Todd Blanche says, we have no evidence of other men. You're saying in the Epstein files you have no evidence of Epstein trafficking women to other men and girls to other men? Here, play this clip.
Yes.
Other than to himself, who, if anyone else, did Mr. Epstein traffic young women to?
There's from what we learned, from what we know. So when we know, I mean, what's in the FBI files and what's in the DOJ files, we did not identify evidence. And by we, I mean career prosecutors, not me, not my leadership, but career prosecutors in New York and career prosecutors in Florida who worked this case hard, did identify other participants, some of whom, as has been discussed, were also victims themselves of Mr. Epstein. But we did not have evidence, as of now, of other men who were that were trafficked, that Epstein helped traffic. That does not mean it didn't happen, and I want to be clear about that. It just means that we have evidence that the FBI gathered and that the Department of Justice gathered, and that's the body of work that we have to work with, which is why I said earlier, if there's anybody out there, victim or otherwise, that has information, I beg them to come forward.
Okay.
And then Blanche says that he did a great job with the Epstein files. It was so transparent and that everybody loves what they did with the Epstein files. Here, play this clip.
Unredact those names. The other thing that we did, Chairman, is we made unredacted versions of the entire database available to everybody in this body. And we did that because of transparency. Remember, for 4 years, there wasn't a peep about Jeffrey Epstein. The Biden administration did nothing to be transparent about the Epstein case. We have been extraordinarily transparent in not only producing the records, but letting unredacted versions be available to anybody in this body. And if after reviewing unredacted materials, a member had concerns about why something was redacted, they brought them to the department's attention and we addressed that. So I want to make sure the American people know that this administration, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, has been more transparent than any past administration, than Biden was or anybody else. And what we did is we complied with the law. And if we learn a new material, we will most certainly review it and make it available. When it comes to the victims of this whole...
Todd Blanche then refuses to agree with Democratic Senator Blumenthal that ICE agents shouldn't fire into cars. Let's play it.
One last question. Would you agree with me that agents of the United States should not fire into cars unless they're fire their weapons into cars unless there is an imminent threat?
Give a short answer to that.
There's a well-established standard as to when an agent can discharge their firearm, and I think that's something that should be followed in every case.
And
they're
that
not
includes
following.
not firing weapons into cars.
Mr. Chair.
Before you want to respond to?
I mean, there's not really a response. It requires federal agents to follow the rules.
Then let's move on. Before I call on.
We then heard from Senator Booker. Let's play it.
Well, just 1 week after your meeting, Ms. Maxwell was transferred from a low-security federal institution to a minimum security prison camp. Were you involved with that transfer?
When, as I've talked about before, in the time leading up to me going down to meet with her, we learned that she was receiving threats. That turned out.
I'm going to interrupt you for a matter of time because.
Okay, well, it's not a question I can answer apparently in the time you're giving me.
I'm going to tell you this because I deal with issues of criminal justice. When people are under threats in a Bureau of Prison facility, they're put into solitary confinement or protective. They're not moved to a camp.
That's not always true.
It is.
You're
Well,
just
what
wrong.
is what is true is someone that is accused of child sex trafficking under the Bureau of Prison's own policies is not put in a facility like this that seems clearly like a reward.
More from Booker. Let's play it.
Not closing.
Let me tell you why ethics laws that bind you about the appearance of impropriety are so damning in this case. On the same day that Paramount shareholders voted to approve the merger, David Ellison, the head of the acquiring company, hosted a dinner that you attended honoring the President of the United States. While you were at that dinner, the DOJ was still investigating a merger. Did you speak with Mr. Ellison on that evening?
No.
Did you discuss with anyone involved in that organization that evening the department's ongoing investigations?
No.
Well, 6 weeks later, after that dinner, that investigation was closed that you're stating you have no idea if the attorneys in charge even finished their investigation.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
You asked me a question about whether the attorneys recommended that the investigation be closed, and I said I wasn't sure. That's different than what you just threw back at me.
Do you believe that creates an appearance of impropriety that you were at a dinner?
No.
Okay. The Justice Department ethics rules are very clear about avoiding the appearance of impropriety. In a case like this, I don't think that's appearance of impropriety. I think that's improper. That the connected and the powerful are getting a chance to rub shoulders. It would seem appropriate that you avoid those kind of appearances and dinners like that.
Every appearance or dinner or speech that I give are cleared by ethics officials.
So your attendance at that dinner was cleared by ethics officials?
Everything that I do.
I didn't ask you everything you do. Was your appearance at that dinner
You
clear?
can ask the questions, but you cannot control my answers. I'm under oath, and I can answer the questions. I choose to answer them.
Were you
So what I will tell
approved
you is when I do
yes
things
or
outside,
no?
when I
Were
do
you
things-
approved
when
by
I do
ethics?
things outside of the department, whether it's a speech, whether it's a dinner, whether it's an event, they are approved by ethics officials.
You did not answer whether that attendance was approved.
Every time I go out, it's approved. Yes.
Here's more from Senator Booker right here. Let's play it.
The Department of Justice is also responsible that powerful corporations play by the same rules. Let's take a proposed merger between Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Discovery. This is no ordinary transaction. It was a proposed $111 billion merger involving two of the last remaining legacy Hollywood studios. As Deputy Attorney General and later Acting Attorney General, you exercise oversight of the Antitrust Division. You approved the decision to close the department's investigation into that merger, yes or no?
I was part of the decision. I
Yes,
don't know
you were involved in that.
You
That
don't
is a
even
yes.
let me answer, man.
Did
That's
the
incredible.
career attorneys
The
who
answer-
investigated that deal recommend closing that investigation?
I didn't have a conversation with the career, but as I was saying,
I didn't
earlier,
ask you
I
that.
was-
I asked you, did the career attorneys who investigated the deal recommend closing the investigation?
I have no idea what they.
You were in charge of that department, yet you have no idea. Well,
I didn't say I had no idea. I had no idea about the question you asked, about what the career attorney's view was.
You do not know what the career attorney's view was.
I'm not sure what the view was with respect to closing it or not closing it.
Let me tell you why.
We then heard from Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, who I thought probably did the best cross-examination of all. This one was on conflicts of interest. Let's play it.
So you said to CPAC a couple months ago, the other things that are happening, there is not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions, meaning the prosecution of the president. She was saying that it's not a conflict of interest for you to be involved in the firing of prosecutors who prosecuted your client, your former client. There's no conflict there? Is that
No, there is. I wasn't involved.
So
There would be a
at
conflict.
CPAC, you're taking credit for the firing of these Department of Justice lawyers, but you're not willing to take responsibility before this committee. Is that the case?
No.
Okay.
I'm making, I said, there's a statement I gave
you
at
were
CPAC.
bragging about this at CPAC, the firing of these prosecutors, the firing of the FBI agents, the getting rid of everyone who investigated your client. You were proud of that, speaking for the Department of Justice, but you don't think that's a conflict of interest. You moved to vacate. I don't think you're going to deny involvement in this.
More from Senator Schiff right here. Let's play it.
No, what I
So
represented
you've also said, you've also refused to release Volume 2 of the Special Counsel's report. That was an investigation into the Mar-a-Lago documents case. How is that not an abundant conflict of interest? Refusing to release to the public an investigative report of an investigation into your client.
I am not a judge, a federal judge.
No.
It
The
cannot be
department's
released.
position under you, Mr. Blanche, the department's position under you, Mr. Blanche, was do not release the report.
So that position,
If you went into court asking them to release it, it would be released by now. So how is that not a patent conflict of interest?
what you're saying happens to not be true. I did not do that. What you're talking about happened before I became the Deputy
support the
Attorney General.
release of Volume 2?
No, I don't, but I'm recused and it had nothing to do with that case. Like, you can't accuse me of violating my ethical rules and then lie about what I did.
So you had nothing to do with the decision to prohibit the release of the report? You had nothing to do with the department's
wasn't in court.
position?
I
No, I'm
wasn't
not asking
in
whether you were in
court.
court. I'm asking you whether anyone sought your opinion or used your guidance in refusing to release Volume 2.
When
Are you
that
saying you had nothing to do with
when
that
that
decision?
litigation was ongoing, I was a private citizen, still representing the President of the United States. It was before March. Since March, to the extent there's been anything in front of that judge,
Mr.
I haven't
Blanche,
been part of
I
it.
asked you in your last confirmation hearing whether you would release the report, and your answer was no. Your answer was not, I will recuse myself. Your answer was no, I will not release the report. That was your testimony last before this committee. You subsequently were advised by ethics lawyers not to be involved in these matters, but it appears you were involved in these matters. Let me ask you about another matter.
I wasn't involved.
Well,
You can't say it appears I was involved, but I said I wasn't.
Let me ask you about another one you have your name on.
The truth has to matter at some point.
It does matter. We just don't hear much of it from you. But let me.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million.
Okay, y'all. I'm gonna go to sleep. I just hopped out the bathtub. I'll see y'all later on tomorrow. Well, today, later on in the day. Hello. Hold on. See something, make sure what popped up before I go. Hold on. It's coming what? Trump flies into. Yeah, I wanted to hear. Oh boy, Blanche crashes and burns.
All right, guys, July 9th, 2026. The entire world is
July
watching the
9th.
Strait of Hormuz. CNN is running footage of U.S. warships. Fox News is counting missiles. TikTok has drone videos of fires in the desert. Every analyst on every network is talking about retaliation, about escalation, about whether this is the beginning of World War III. Okay? And nobody, not one person on any of those channels is asking about a railway bridge in the Golestan province of Iran, 12 kilometers from the Turkmenistan border.
Oh yeah, our arsenal is running out.
Hitting deep into Russian land. They knew a military setup was.
Our arsenal is
They
running
can keep
out.
that strait open if they want to, and there's basically nothing stopping them from doing just that. What makes this really important is that they are in a super strong spot. Because of the way the land and rocks are set up, that strait is really hard to take over. They have the power to control what happens there. We don't. This isn't the kind of place where you can just attack from the ground or the air and think you're going to have real control. And that's the deeper truth here. They are fully able to wreck everything on the western side of the Gulf. I'd even go further and say Iran could totally destroy Israel too. And more from Thrawn's point of view, there doesn't seem to be much reason to pick any other path. If you were sitting where they are, watching us try to build replacements, why would you wait? Why would you just stand there and let the weapons aimed at you get finished? Think about what that really means. Russia faced something like this back in 2022. Moscow had some idea of what was happening in eastern Ukraine. They found plans there that talked about taking back Crimea and hitting deep into Russian land. They knew a military setup was being built against them. What they didn't get at first was how big it had gotten. They underestimated the huge amount of time, money, and stuff we had put into Ukraine. But once that was clear, the logic changed. There was no smart reason to sit still and wait to be wiped out. Better to face it, fight it, and win no matter how long the fight takes. I think that's where Iran is right now too. And this is the key point. That might be the winning card. They can outlast everyone else. That's why I keep saying this turns into a war to the last missile. The only question is, who runs out of ammo first? If the Strait of Hormuz were the only issue on the table, the picture would already be pretty bad for us. But nobody is talking about the other thing that makes it even worse. Point number one in the whole memo is that the war in Lebanon has to end between Israel and Hamas, even though neither of them was actually part of the deal. Professor Morandi talked about this too, and he made Iran's position even clearer than before. Thrawn has made it plain to Washington that there won't be a nuclear deal if Lebanon isn't cleared out and if that war isn't stopped. No end to the war, no nuclear talks, it's that simple. So the weight falls on the Americans, and beyond that, Iran has another tool. It could make life way harder for the United States in the Strait of Hormuz. If Washington won't honor what Thrawn sees as duties elsewhere, Iran will decide it has no duty to let large amounts of shipping pass through. And honestly, that's already happening. President Trump's main political demand has been no Iranian nuclear weapons and everything that comes with that. Yet the weird part is that Iran has long said it wasn't looking for nuclear weapons in the first place. From their view, that issue is easy enough to state and talk about later, but now the order has changed. They are saying the process won't even start unless these other things are done first. Here's what most people don't get. If that's really the Iranian government stance, then talks are going nowhere because Israel is never going to do what Tehran is asking for. Privately, though, the thinking in Washington and in Israel is pretty much the same. The nuclear issue is almost not the point. In fact, I'd say it acts as a big strategic distraction. If you go back and look at what was being said before the first big round of war started in February, and then what was said right after it slowed down for a bit before July, the focus was clear. People would admit nuclear weapons were important, sure, but then quickly moved to what they really cared about, Iran's ballistic missile stockpile and its ability to threaten Israel. That was the main worry. So Morandi isn't wrong, but there's something he needs to see. Israel has only one okay outcome in this war, and that outcome is the total destruction of Iran. The deeper truth here is that this mirrors what we've seen other places. Just like the folks in Kiev, along with the globalist elites, not the people of Europe, but the elites themselves will accept nothing less than Russia's destruction. The same mindset is at work toward Iran. Those same elites wanted to break Russia apart, cut it into smaller pieces, strip it, use it, and steal its resources. That exact urge is alive in Washington and Israel when it comes to Iran. Nothing about that goal has changed. Now, on the nuclear issue itself, the logic is brutally simple. If your real worry is stopping a country from making and using nuclear weapons, then you don't attack it. But that thought never really mattered because stopping nukes was never actually at the top of the list. Remember this, the Israelis would probably welcome any excuse they could use to launch a nuclear weapon at Iran, and we would likely sit here cheering them on for it. Fine, great, go do it. Nobody in the United States is expected to wake up, come to their senses, and see the madness and the disaster built into all of this. And don't imagine anyone will care what the rest of the world thinks, let alone China or Russia. It's not going to happen. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a damn. So who are we really dealing with? We are dealing with the Kagan crowd and others like them. Loyal servants of the Jewish lobby in the United States, paid well for every effort they make, rewarded handsomely for every word they say and every policy they push. And they are going to keep beating this horse until it is dead. And that horse is Iran. Given that, Professor Morandi's answer is predictable. Build more missiles, strengthen your defenses, and get ready for the worst because it is coming. I don't think Iran has much of a choice. When I listen to all of this, I keep thinking back to what we were saying months ago, even before the war started. And it now seems to me that we have pushed ourselves into the worst possible result. You were pushed repeatedly to embrace the walk-away theory. Just leave, declare victory, say whatever you need to say and get out. Forget talks, forget trying to force a bigger deal. Just claim success and depart. That would have been the least bad option available to us. But now with this deal in place, Trump has trapped himself beyond even a no-win scenario. That earlier path would have been no win. What we have now feels closer to a must-lose situation. We can't fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We can't get the terms we want. Lebanon isn't going anywhere, and Hezbollah isn't disappearing either. So what's left? The only move left for Trump may be to go back to war. Because if he walks away now without securing the strait and without fixing Lebanon, he is publicly labeled a loser. And that means the pressure pushes almost entirely in one direction. He has to escalate. And that escalation pretty much guarantees a physical defeat. Yeah, I think that's right. I hate to keep saying it, but I do think it's true. This becomes a war to the last missile, and we aren't leaving until we believe we have used up every bullet and every capability we have. We aren't going anywhere. And that brings me to Donald Trump, because the real letdown with Trump isn't just what he said before he was elected. Look instead at what he has actually done since taking office. What basic change has he really delivered? I think the honest answer is nothing. Arguably, one of the cornerstones of the success he claimed he wanted to build should have been laws on voter integrity. It's hard to imagine a serious country deciding that on election day it doesn't want every voter to prove who they are, just in case we find out they might not even be American citizens. Yet instead of demanding basic responsibility, we demand nothing and we effectively leave the whole thing to the states. So there is no real voter integrity. And if there is no voter integrity, how meaningful are elections? If elections stop being meaningful, then what does that say about the republic itself? You'd think that issue alone would sit near the very top of Trump's list of critical priorities. But have you heard him talk much about it lately? Not really. I think he has drifted away from the things that were essential to the survival of our republic and has fixed his attention instead on the matters that help his donors. The donor class, the globalists who now run the West, call them donors, globalists, Zionists, neocons, the Epstein class. Use whatever label you like, group them together. They are the people driving this whole mess. They don't care about elections. They don't care about the voters. It means nothing to them who votes, who stays home, or whether the public agrees at all. They are already in charge. That's the problem. And President Trump has done nothing to change it, nor do I expect him to do so anytime soon.
No,
that
he ain't
leaves
gonna
us
do
in a
nothing.
very dark spot. Even if the discussion ended there, the outlook would already be grim. But there is another side to the problem. When we say war to the last missile, that doesn't apply only to the Middle East. It applies equally to the Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, Vladimir Zelensky seems eager to speed up exactly that dynamic
2025.
because he is really interested in those missiles.
Be
He
rich,
has been
Joe.
saying over the last few days that NATO should forget about waiting until 2027. Apparently, there are already contracts in place for Patriots that won't even be built until then. His message is blunt. Forget all of that. Give me the systems you already have right now, and then give me the extra ability to make more of them inside my country going forward. But he is saying something else too, and it matters. He is effectively asking what is wrong with the Western world. Why has it failed to fully mobilize its industry, its abilities, and its military power to support him? Now, I have never been a fan of this man. Like so much else connected to the Ukraine war, He is a fake. This is someone, Kolomoisky, a well-known Jewish oligarch from Russia who moved into Ukraine, built power there and made billions, helped discover and lift up. Kolomoisky, who I guess is sitting in prison somewhere now, found Zelensky, a man who grew up speaking only Russian, who was a comedian, who was not ethnically Ukrainian and certainly not Ukrainian by birth, and helped put him in charge of Ukraine with the help of Nolan, the Kagans, and others. These people created a fake government, and we have backed it completely with help from the CIA and Britain's MI6. Now Zelensky is essentially saying, you put me here. I was ready to try to get out of this through a peace deal. Then Boris Johnson came in, promised me the world, and none of it was delivered. What he is really telling them is this: if you don't give me everything right now, I won't be here a year from now. And on that point, he is absolutely right. There is another issue that almost never gets mentioned. President Putin has shown huge restraint. He has consistently opposed taking steps that might suddenly bring NATO forces directly into the war. He doesn't want a bigger war. In many ways, he has handled that with great care. But conditions are getting rough now. And one reason is that the Russian people have clearly run out of patience. At the same time, we need to remember that Putin has lots of influence far beyond the immediate battlefield. He has enormous influence in Venezuela, in Cuba, and even in Mexico. He has wide reach across many countries. If he chose to, he could escalate what is being done to Russia and Ukraine and what is being done in the Middle East against Iran, and extend that confrontation horizontally into the Western Hemisphere. In that sense, we are lucky that Putin is the man on the other side of the equation. The problem is that somewhere along the way, Trump seemed to promise a degree of flexibility, understanding, or accommodation in Alaska that turned out to be a complete lie. And I think that has genuinely changed the mood in Moscow. The feeling is no longer just that American promises are unreliable. It is that the Americans themselves are the enemy just as much as the Europeans. That is very dangerous. And that is why I don't think it is impossible that we see dramatic events in the coming months. The assumption that Russia will simply continue to sit quietly and slowly bite off pieces of its enemy while stopping there is a mistake. We are already seeing fortress cities fall, and assuming the Russians won't move beyond that is reckless. This may be the most dangerous period we have seen yet. I don't know which front blows up first, Iran or Ukraine, but I wouldn't dismiss trouble in the Caribbean either, including Cuba, Venezuela, and Mexico. Yet nobody seems focused on those connections. Nobody sees how these theaters relate to one another, and we should. There is far more happening than most people realize. We don't even control what is happening inside our own country, and that is another huge issue. We haven't even begun to discuss economics. You could bring on Jeff Curry, who understands the oil market and oil trade better than almost anyone, or you could bring on many others. No one can predict everything with total certainty, but we do know this: between now and the fall, the oil markets are heading toward an emergency set of conditions, and that will hit us here at home as well. Is anybody truly thinking that through? Or is President Trump convinced that he can manipulate these markets forever, even though we are running out of the oil needed to keep doing it? Maybe something changes. Maybe the clouds part and suddenly the weather clears. I don't know. But there are too many variables and too many ways for things to go badly wrong. What makes this really important is that nobody seems capable of tying those risks together into any meaningful whole. No. And there is another sign that the sunshine is not about to break through and that sanity is not about to suddenly appear. By all accounts, President Trump really does seem to believe he can manipulate the markets forever, and that control over the paper market will somehow translate into control over the physical one. That is probably not going to happen. And that same mindset carries directly into the war itself, especially in Ukraine. In fact, you can see this in the mainstream view. There was a Fox News appearance from Andrew Harding that perfectly captured how establishment voices frame the war. And I think it reveals an even larger problem. The line was that if any president can bring both sides together, it is President Trump. Not that a ceasefire or a pause is easy, of course, but the argument is that he has a strong second-term record of securing pauses, ceasefires, and even longer-term halts in fighting all over the world between Israel and Hamas, between India and Pakistan, and more recently between the United States and Iran. Therefore, the claim goes, Trump is deeply committed to diplomacy and preventing conflict from expanding. No, leaving aside the sheer craziness of that argument, Trump himself said only a few days ago that he still wants a diplomatic ending and believes we are going to get one. He said that after speaking with President Putin on the 4th of July, but you could lift that almost word for word from what he was saying on January 21st of last year when he first came in and said the same thing. 18 months go by, nothing changes, and people still keep listening. And this Fox commentator is probably not even talking to the audience as much as he is talking to Trump himself, because Trump always watches this kind of thing. It feeds his ego. It reinforces the fantasy that he can do all these great things, when in fact he is doing none of them. If Trump starts believing his own talk, that is dangerous. Frankly, I think that young man ought to be sent down to Fort Benning, made to spend some time in the infantry, and eventually somebody should knock him flat and throw him out. That should end his career. He is infuriating because in the way he looks, speaks, and carries himself, he embodies so much of what is wrong with American manhood today. There is not much manhood left. And he is perfectly willing to say whatever the people funding him want him to say. Look, all of this is garbage. It means nothing. It is nonsense from top to bottom. The tragedy is that, as I said at the beginning of this program, most of my generation still listens to it. That is the problem. They keep listening and they keep believing it. Everybody else has largely walked away. Once you get below the age of 50, you see more and more people looking at all of this and saying it is absurd. It makes no sense, and they want no part of it. I think the truth is that in the eyes of much of the electorate, our great governing institutions have lost legitimacy entirely. And that is an extremely dangerous condition. People simply no longer believe what they are being told. But again, if you live inside the 600th bubble, none of these problems exist. Travel a 100 miles west, south, northeast, or northwest, and the picture changes dramatically. Inside Washington, however, the fantasy remains intact. That world is still functioning on illusion, and he is one more example of it. We do not have sponsors because we cannot stand bludgeoning people with ads. I do not like them. So show a little support in return. Subscribe, hit like, and send this to someone you care about.
Okay, y'all, good night. Good night. Good night. Mwah. Good night.